Hi, everybody. We're the
Hello.
Skeleton Crew, and today our job is beach. At the end of last week's video, we mentioned that we would be showing you a Apatosaurus this week, but Frontier decided to release an exciting new DLC featuring all marine species, and so we've bumped a Apatosaurus out of its release slot so that we could talk about these even sooner for you all. Coming at you right now with a giant mass of curly hair so painfully compressed into a hat I bought as a child that I'm feeling pain I haven't felt since my PhD was completed, is Dr. James Napoli. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and North Carolina State University.
Hello, coming at you from a volleyball game, let's say, on the beach, because our job is beach. My name is Amelia Zietlow. I'm a PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City.
Coming at you with a pair of my old prescription swim goggles back when I used to be on the swim team is Scott Johnston, the vertebrate paleontology fossil preparator and technician at Harvard University's Museum of Comparative Zoology.
Coming to you from the beach that makes you old, I'm Alex Rubenstahl, a PhD candidate at Yale University, and as you can see, I've got my fun shirt, coconut-themed beverage, which I'll move too fast, so you can't see the brand. An idol to the gods I worship here.
What did he hold up? I can't see because I'm not wearing my normal
clothes. Cthulhu.
Oh, okay, got it.
A little
I
idol.
can hold it up closer for you.
Oh,
Thank you.
I
Oh,
stay
that
on the
actually
beach,
helps a
so I'm
lot.
sure
Thank
that
you.
he slumbers. The beach that makes you old. A PhD.
What is a PhD if not a beach that makes you
It
old?
is certainly a beach that makes you old. I'm coming to you live from a pineapple under the sea. I'm Dalton Meyer. I'm also a PhD candidate at Yale University. And together, we're the
Skeleton Crew!
All right, guys, before we get into it, because we've got a lot to cover today, and we anticipate this is going to be a long video and one that takes even longer to edit tonight, I want to briefly remind you of a couple of things. One, if you enjoy our videos, you should show us that by liking the videos and subscribing to the Skeleton Crew if you haven't already. And if you're a super fan and you're super generous and you're able to, we'd appreciate it if you considered supporting us on Patreon. The support we get on there is astoundingly generous and really, really makes us very happy and gives us the ability to put a lot more energy into these videos so that we can make them the best that they can be for all of you. If you join our Patreon, you will be able to access the exclusive Skeleton Crew Crewmates Discord server, which is becoming an incredibly vibrant and supportive, positive community. I'm incredibly proud of it. I'm sure we all are. And you'll get access to a range of benefits, including your name in the credits of all of our videos. And if you're one of our highest tier donors, you'll have a spoken shout out just for you at the end of every video we make. So consider supporting us there if you can. Does anybody else have anything to add?
These goggles were sitting on my forehead for so long, they are so sweaty. I can't see anything out of them. This is the worst idea ever.
I didn't realize they were goggles. I thought they were sunglasses.
No, these are swim goggles.
I felt that one in my soul.
That was quite a clap.
I am in so much agony, I feel like my head is just being squeezed in a vice. I sometimes forget how much hair I have, and it's trying to spring outward, so I'm feeling the compression of the hat.
All y'all in pain. This is not the beach vibe.
If you dropped me on my head down a staircase, I would bounce like a slinky, just on my hair.
Oh no.
Boing. Viewer, this is the pain we go through for you.
Okay, I thought
what we do to bring
that
content.
I'm going to save for later in the video.
Oh, please.
Oh boy.
Don't worry about it.
All right, Dalton, let's get wet and wild and check out our first
Who do we want to start with?
moist beast.
Start with fish. Let's
start
give
with
a
the fish?
phylogenetic direction to this.
Sure. Look at them. Menacingly.
We're starting with the fish.
Ooh, I should probably join the Discord, shouldn't I?
Undulating.
You probably should.
Wow.
It's fish time.
Ooh, speaking of, I had a salmon burger for dinner to be even more on theme.
Ooh.
Also because it sounded really good. It was.
Salmon burgers are good.
What else is good is this creature.
Yeah.
That's a good boy.
I'm a really big fan of the design. I guess we should probably state get the elephant in the room out of the way.
Oh, wait. We're gonna have another elephant in the room right now. Everybody, take a look at this.
I don't know if it's gonna. Oh, yep.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
that's
Yeah,
That's so
we called
cool.
it.
That's
Awesome.
beautiful. Yeah, so the elephant in the room is that if you follow the Skeleton Crew and you follow recent news in paleontology, you may have seen our video talking with Russell Engelman, who's a graduate student at Case Western Reserve University in Ohio.
Linked here.
Yes, linked here, and I'll remember to do it when I upload it, I swear. And so Russell is a paleontologist who studies fossil mammals, and took a long sojourn away from fossil mammals into the world of fish body size estimation, and produced an incredibly thorough piece of research that argues pretty persuasively, in my opinion, that Dunkleosteus, the fish depicted here, was not shaped like this.
No.
It would have been a lot shorter and fatter. With that stated, I'm sure that the production of this model was already well underway by the time that paper was released. And this is a beautiful version of it. A beautiful version of the traditional view of Dunkleosteus as having a long, great white shark-inspired body. So, yeah.
Although they didn't, one thing I do have to say that I appreciate about this design is they didn't 100% sharkify it. They didn't just give it like a great white shark body that they grafted this armored pug head onto. The dorsal fin is a whole lot farther back. It's a whole lot more elongate. It's a more.
What is he doing right now?
He wiggling. He's shimmying.
Oh wait, we're gonna get the social. We might get the social animation.
Oh, we're getting.
Oh, that's really good. Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, that's another fun thing that happens in this. With this update, the marine creatures now have social animations, which is sad for Attenborosaurus and Styxosaurus because we already covered them, but we're looking forward to that in the future. Although,
yeah,
Amelia, I have bad news.
I know.
What's the bad news?
Neither Tylosaurus nor Mosasaurus have social animations.
No, that's not true. They bite other things, which is about as sociable as a mosasaur would.
No, yeah, but they
okay.
could have done actual face biting or something with each other, which is a thing that they absolutely did.
Like Herrerasaurus. Herrerasaurus face bites in this game. Well, it attempts to. When the models never line up properly, but they're supposed to be face biting.
That's my favorite thing about the social animations in this game. It's there's a 15% margin of error. It's it's roughly within that range.
No, but okay, it boggles my mind that for so many other social animations, we don't see it with the sauropods that their necks clip into each other and they're rubbing on opposite sides of their head or stuff like that. Normally they line up pretty good. And then there's Herrerasaurus that sometimes is in possibly the proper zip code to be face biting, but most of the time isn't.
My favorite is when the animals look like they're telekinetic when they're fighting, and it jumps up and completely it's 2 feet above the other animal, and it just gets blown back without making any contact.
They've got the dune shields happening.
Yeah, exactly.
It occurs to me,
slow claw
we didn't see them be released, so let's watch that now.
We didn't.
The music for these guys is pretty cool when they come out.
Ooh.
I heard it's kind of Jaws-ish.
Oh, it is.
For our viewers, because our average viewer was born about 7 minutes ago, Jaws is a very good movie about a big shark.
Maybe one of the best movies ever made.
On Martha's Vineyard. It's a kick-ass movie, and you should watch it because it kicks ass.
It'd be even more kick-ass if it was a Dunkleosteus.
So there's actually something funny I want to point out now. So this whole video so far, I've been wondering, why did Frontier change the saturation on the game colors and make it so ugly? It just looks terrible. And then I remembered I'm wearing sunglasses inside. and that's why I keep being and it looks fine. It looks like the game always looks. They didn't change anything.
I just love James looking at Dunkleosteus on screen. Just
Something's not quite right. Also, they didn't make it look like an eel, which I appreciate.
I want the oarfish version.
Although, Okay. Well, yes. Russell's oarfish, Dunkleosteus. I do wish they had that in the game. Although, okay, a criticism I have of this. Okay, we should first do what its name means. Dunkleosteus.
It means Dunklebone.
Dunkle's bones.
That's a stupid name. I like it.
It's a really
No, that wasn't
dumb
its first name. Right?
Is
What?
that like
What?
not the name it would like to go by with its friends? Like,
No, it was originally
Does it have a
described under a different
given
name.
name?
I actually didn't know that.
Hold on. Let me. It's Dinichthyes
Dinichthyes.
terrelli.
That's a better name.
It's not awful. Well, it doesn't. It's not as fun to say. It has a worse
So there's an
mouthfeel. Let's put
existing-
it that way.
Sorry, there's an existing genus of placoderm, which is Dinichthyes, and this was just referred as a different species before it was described further and given its own
I
name.
see.
I think pretty
Yeah.
long after it was originally discovered, because Dunkleosteus is like from the 50s, and then
It was
1870.
It was discovered in 1867.
Good lord.
So yeah, like almost a century.
I didn't
Right.
realize it was that old. I mean, in terms of, you know what I mean.
I was about to say it's a
terms of
very old
discovery.
animal.
I know it's an old animal in time.
Oh dear God, James, put the hat back
We're
on.
repacking the curly hair.
Oh god, it's
There's a reason
like
I wear hats, all right? Oh god, I've torqued it. I just feel all the hair ripping out of its socket. I have hair sockets, okay? I don't have follicles. I have sockets.
You're like the Play-Doh like
Sock.
figure that grows in.
That's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
We've lost Alex.
Yeah, so it's Dunklebone.
Dunklebone. Yeah.
And
Dunkelbone.
what's Terrelli for? Is that for a person too?
Yeah, it's Jay Terrell
Yeah.
is the person who found it.
I mean, is there only one really big species? Because I know there are quite a number of species of Dunkleosteus, but I don't know if they're all big or if
I
the
think-
really big spooky one is just.
I
Let me
think
see.
Torella is the one that's well known and very large.
Okay. Yeah, no,
I mean,
previous.
I'm sure the others are comparable, but Torella is the one that most of the literature is about.
Yeah, this is a weird.
Yeah,
Sir,
there's a lot of species. There are actually a shockingly huge number of species.
how many are there?
1, 2, 3, 4.
I just,
5,
viewer, I like making him
7,
count because I know it's hard
9,
for him.
10. 10. Well, possibly 10. 9 confirmed.
Yeah.
Well, ain't that the bee's knees?
We need an Engelman
I do have to
skin for this animal. Just the skin
Yeah,
and the
don't-
hatchery should say Engelman.
Yeah. And it's the same model, but they like put it in
Just-
Photoshop and just like pushed the bound.
You
in
could just
a
like
bunch.
cut the middle like chunk because like you were saying when they position this dorsal fin pretty far back, and that honestly is pretty much in line with Engelman's reconstruction. Like all they need
Yeah.
to do to this is just kind of squish it.
I do have to say, of the other species of Dunkleosteus, this, like some of the other critters that we featured on the show, has one genus and species name that is just way better than all the others, which is Dunkleosteus magnificus.
Ooh.
That's a good name.
Right?
So we've gotten some comments.
Dunkle's magnificent bone. That's a good name. I'd listen to that indie rock band.
I've heard it was Dunkel's Magnificent Bone. I actually know nothing about David Dunkel. I'm sorry. I don't want to slander him in case his bone was not
Or his
magnificent.
bone.
Right.
Maybe his bone was not magnificent.
If you just have regular bones.
So we've gotten a lot of comments from people that we don't talk about the models anymore, which is true.
What?
The models.
Like the actual game model. Like we
Yeah, we
just
do at the end.
eventually.
Present that.
I want to say I think this is really pretty. I think this is one of the most like convincing life reconstructions I've seen of Dunkleosteus that uses the old interpretation of its anatomy.
Mhm.
It always looked a little bit like a fictional creature for my taste. And here it really
So-
looks like a living. Like if I saw this fish, I would not be happy I saw it. I'd be very afraid, but I would believe that it was a fish. They always give
So-
like the animatronic shark at the Jaws ride in Universal Studios.
Hmm.
Dalton, why did your camera disappear for a moment?
I don't know. It was just like we can't access your video, and then it fixed itself. So
Well,
Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
There was no error message or anything, so let's just assume it's fine.
Find another one. Here we go.
Everything's hunky dory.
So I'm curious
Yes.
I'm curious what makes you so
about
curious.
this model. If we look at one that's facing more directly into the sun,
Let's see what we can do.
it has two cute little nostrils.
Does it?
Yeah.
And yes,
Oh,
Let me cycle
like
through my dog.
it
Where'd it
has
go?
a very adorable. Oh, that one will work.
Yep.
Very adorable little
Oh my
pug face when you
God!
look at it from the front.
that's so cute.
It is cute.
And
Oh.
I guess there's kind of gaps in the
Yeah. Mhm.
dermal armor at those points, but like I don't know. I find it hard to believe that a feature this absolutely completely adorable would have existed on the creature.
So, looking online, there's a skeletal mount of Dunkleosteus marseillai that does appear to have little things in that position that might be ossified nostrils.
I see that, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
I mean, like, fish have nostrils, so, like...
yeah, they do.
I mean, yeah. But like, I don't know. I was just curious if they were actually in that position.
I'm
and,
sorry.
looked like that.
The Torelli skull at the Cleveland Museum, I think, also has bony plates that have indentations that are pretty clearly for the nostrils. So I think that looks accurate. It's a nice
Oh
little.
my
so
gosh.
cute.
I like looking at it up close too. Like I like the eye. I really like the distinction in the texturing of the nathal plates, which, as we talked about in our dunk video, these aren't teeth. These are just shearing plates of bone. And
Look at the wear.
yeah, they've got
good.
like
too. Oh my god.
as if they grind against each other, which they did to stay sharp. That's very cool.
Also,
And
just
little
a fun fact about Dunkleosteus, because I didn't know this until I took a class last year now. I don't know, time is fake. The bones that make up their jaws are not homologous to like the jawbones of anything alive today. So my understanding, I guess I'll throw that caveat in there. My understanding is that the bones that make up their jaws are not homologous to the bones that make up the jaws of like everything else alive today. So basically, homology is the idea that similar structures are just passed down, through a lineage, and they're modified to meet different needs. So the most common example of this you'll probably see in your biology classes are like arms, right? Like our arm bones and hand bones and wrist bones are the exact same as a bat's wing, as a bird's wing, as a whale's flipper, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same pieces being modified to different shapes to make a different structure. But ultimately, those bones are originating from a common source, basically. And so, oh my god, he's so wiggly.
Oh, wait, he's getting into position.
Okay.
He's assuming the
Okay,
position.
I'll let him do his thing.
Cool.
That's so great. But anyways, so the fact that every other living thing with jaws has the same jawbones making up the jaws. And this group, because it's all oh god, I'm blanking on the placoderms, right? It's for them specifically, like somehow their jawbones are coming from a different spot. I guess not somehow, like, because these things are so old. Were they the first jaws? Like,
The split between gnathostomes is traditionally like placoderms, writ large, and then all other gnathostomes.
right. So that's, I don't know, I just think it's really cool. And now you guys can correct everything I said, but like the gist, which, Dalton has said, is basically like animals evolved jaws twice in the way that we think of them. One of them being placoderms, so Dunkleosteus and its relatives, and the other being sharks and everything else after that.
So I have heard that the bones in the placoderm skull roof are not homologous, but my understanding is that it's not considered to be a separate origin of jaws. It's a separate origin of bone.
Okay. That I don't know. I know the bones aren't the same. Like it is, I know
Yeah.
that much. I guess I don't really know if it's a separate origin of jaws or not, but that's probably understandably a very difficult thing to actually pin down.
So, just gonna say, right? So I think part of this comes from the fact that, as we'll talk about, placoderm is probably not one group. There are things like Dunkleosteus, which are these kind of more traditional placoderms. But there was a fish, Entelognathus, which is kind of this transition, if you will, between what are considered kind of more early diverging gnathostomes and crown gnathostomes, which would include all of our fish and us. And it was an important fossil because I think, in part, it allowed some comparisons and hypotheses of homology between these skulls. So, like, and actually, if we can get a picture of Dunk, you can see some of these. So, like, there's the big plate bone under the eye, which is, I think, called a suborbital in placoderms. But this is like the jugal bone in crown tetrapods, or it's at least hypothesized. I also think that the main bone of the mandible is thought to be homologous with the dentary.
See, and that's specifically what I thought. It has a different name, and like at least
it's called the
infradentaries.
Yeah,
is what I'm seeing. But yeah, there's several bones, and I think one of them is homologous to our dentary, and then the rest are lost.
Infragnathal. Okay, there we go.
They're either lost in like non-placoderm gnathostomes, or they're like apomorphic of placoderm style gnathostomes. I don't know.
Right. I mean, yeah. Because Amelia is correct. Like bird. Oh my god, fish skulls are stupid, and
bird skulls are also
kind of a trend, an evolutionary trend as you go from fish to respectable animal. Is that you reduce the number of bones that are in your skull, so things will be lost or they merge together.
Oh god.
And so
I still have night terrors about the bowfin fish skull
yeah,
that we
exactly.
had to name all the bones of back in
comparative.
in my paleontology class. Thanks, Jeff.
My understanding of it is that it's particularly the topological arrangement of bones on the skull roof that has clued people into the fact that this is a separate origin of a cranial skeleton. Right?
I see.
So it's not necessarily the origin of jaws, because that seems to happen once, right? We've got some homologous elements, and we know that jaws are originating because it's actually the anterior two gill arches in a jawless fish. So the first one folds up and becomes the upper and the lower jaw. The second one becomes the hyomandibular apparatus that becomes your hyoid bone. But in, I guess, osteichthyes, right? Osteichthyes being bony fish, the cranial skull roof bones are all primitively paired. So there's a left and a right frontal.
Yeah. A
left and a right parietal. And various groups of animals will fuse those onto the midline. But in all in all placoderms, or many of these groups that are traditionally called placoderms, there's only single midline elements. And so the bone that's in the position where we'd call it a parietal in Entelognathus is called a pineal bone.
Called a what?
A pineal.
Sorry.
Now, I'm just gonna caution our audience with one thing. I am certain this is under a tremendous amount of debate, because this is a tough thing to know.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the current accepted wisdom is. This could be something that within the fish paleontology community is known to be an ongoing problem, or it could be something that's considered resolved and they've worked it out. This is not the community of researchers we're a part of, so it's hard for us to know that offhand. But the point.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, the point Amelia is making is fundamentally correct, which is these guys are very ancient, and this seems to be a second origin of the cranial skeleton, or at least major parts of it. What it's not a separate origin of is the cartilaginous structures underneath.
Yeah.
Which, right, because chondrichthyes are basal to these guys, right? Oh no, they're not. I'm sorry. Never mind. No, that's separate. Chondrichthyes are above these guys, which makes sense of why there'd be two separate origins of cranial skeletons. You'd have one in bony fish and one in placoderms under this model.
Well, primitively chondrichthyans were bony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Then never mind.
Which I think is where some of the contention for how many origins of bones are there in gnathostomes. There's this other thing Oh, I don't want to embarrass myself by attempting to pronounce its name, so I'm not going to. But it's an even earlier
Try, coward.
Like stem nathostome, and it's got like this very slender little denary, or
I think an Aquilio.
Is this
Well,
Pylidium?
Bianching ichthyes, and then there's another thing like it. But we were talking about Dunkleosteus, and we're going to talk about phylogeny and also anatomy of it at some point, but first phylogeny. So what is a fish? This is a question that doesn't have an answer that's nice and simple. I'm going to tell you what I think a fish is, and also what is the correct answer, and then various people in the skeleton crew can agree or disagree with me. Fish, as it's commonly used, kind of refers to swimmy guys with gills. I think this is a good definition for fish. And what does that mean as a taxonomic term? I would tell you that a fish is anything with a head that swims up. So this would include hagfish and lampreys, all sorts of bony, really everything that's a vertebrate or a craniate, depending on if you want to get technical. But
what do you mean swims up?
Up the tree, not like swims up.
Oh, okay.
It must keep the sun.
Anything that swims down ceases to be a fish.
I was about to say, I'm like, if it did, like those lanternfish migrations, are they only fish when they're ascending, and they are no longer fish when they descend?
They become bugs when they descend. Yes. Anyway, so within what we consider fish, there are a lot of groups. Like a lot of groups. So there are the really, really early Cambrian stuff, or what I would consider fish, I should say. There are all these jawless armored things from the Ordovician to the Devonian. We're not going to talk about them. There are too many. They're all weird. One of them, learning about one of them in a children's paleontology book was the first existential crisis I ever had. Where I'm like, this doesn't fit with my conception of reality.
Which one?
Sacambaspis. Yeah. Because it's got those goofy eyes and then just like a little like...
that one got incredibly viral on Twitter recently, especially in Japan.
Because it's God's final joke unto man.
I would argue,
it looks like an emoji with a stapled onto a tadpole.
I would argue that the big frying pan one is objectively funnier and worse because it's the same, but it's rectangular and it has like little jet propulsion holes in the back. I don't really know what they're for or what they are.
I hate these animals.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about them. I was just giving context.
But I want to just say my deepest respect to the paleontologists who studied these animals, because I could not imagine anything more difficult.
Well, also, these are important.
Oh yeah, they're critical. Yeah, they're really important
because this is where bone
or the origin of vertebrates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. So like the Cambrian swimmy guys don't have bone, and then there are conodonts, which I don't really want to talk about.
Nobody wants to talk about conodonts.
And then there are all these guys, and they've got a million different types of bone. There's acellular bone, there's cellular bone, they're all doing different things to make the skeleton, and all of them are weird, and then you get up to stuff like cephalaspis, which begin to have pectoral fins. And then we have gnathostomes. Gnathostomes are jawed fish. So everything down there, jawless, includes lampreys and hagfish, which are the only parts of that ancient kind of jawless fish that are alive today. All the armored stuff eats it by the end of the Devonian, which is kind of interesting that we have yet to find any that have persisted past the end of the Devonian. And this includes what we call placoderms. So that gnathostome, those jawed fish, there's a bunch of primitive stuff. And then there's the crown, and the crown are sharks and then bony fish. And bony fish include rayfin fishes and lobefin fishes. Lobefin fishes are us and all tetrapods. Rayfin fishes are the vast, overwhelming diversity of fish.
Mm-hmm.
There's your context. What we're interested in is the weird stuff that's right outside of crown gnathostomes. These are the stem stuff, and this includes things like acanthodians, some of them are in the crown, and placoderms, which are all over the place and incredibly diverse, and also all die by the end of the Devonian.
The Devonian was really where God's creatures really start at the end of the Devonian. This was clearing the way for things that look like an animal as we would conceive of one today.
Yeah. This is truly in the beginning phase of William Buckland's worldview.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, big horrible marine riptids were on the way out. And big fish. It was big fish, very hot right now. So there are a lot of groups, and we're not going to talk about all of these groups, or even most, but they came in all, like, placoderms, all sorts of shapes and sizes. They're kind of characterized by all having these heavily armored head and, I'm going to use air quotes here, shoulders, but plates behind the head that the pectoral fins kind of, there were little holes for them. But,
which is literally what the name means. Placoderm means plate skin.
Ah. Yeah. That's a good name.
Right.
Not like Dunkleosteus. Bad. No. But yeah, so some of these appear like we got on a brief stunlock early in the video. Some of these things like Intellignathus appear to be important in the origin of bony fish skeletons, and other things like Dunkleosteus appear to be earlier diverging and kind of their own separate interesting radiation. But these things do, like, more than just big snappy guys. There are flat ones that are like kind of analogous to like a ray or a skate. Yeah. There are gigantic ones that might have been kind of like filter or suspension feeders, like Titanichthys. And how gigantic? Sure, it would have been a big fish. And there are freshwater ones, things like Bothria lepus, right?
Oh yeah, I've personally worked on a bunch of Bothria lepus.
Bothria lepus has all like over the Bothria. 150 species too, or something. It's
a sample size.
Yeah, but like,
these things are like bony meatballs, so it's pretty easy to become a fossil.
Right, in like estuarine environments where fossils form a lot.
Those ones are fun as well because you say that they have bony plates on like the head and air quotes shoulders. Bothria lepus also has bony pectoral fins.
Oh,
like they're
right.
very straight.
They would make a good glider. You know, like I don't know if any of you like had pool toys that were like little torpedoes that you throw. Like that's what Bothria lepus looks like to me.
Yeah. Yes.
It really does.
I thought you were going to ask if we got little wooden gliders from the dentist.
No, but
I did that as well.
Yeah, I've gotten not from the dentist. I got them from the children's museum, not a dentist.
When I was a little kid, at like the children's dentist, after you had your teeth looked at and cleaned, there was like a box of toys, and you could go get a toy from it, and many of them were little wooden gliders.
Oh man, we just got stickers at mine.
So I would like to make one just addition to what Alex said, which is not a criticism or a change to the phylogenetic arrangement, but if you're like me as a younger person who in this field and are confused by the idea of a fish not having jaws, I just want to remind you that does not mean mouthless. They had a mouth.
Yes.
They did not have a skeleton within the mouth that allowed the jaws to actuate. And that's a little bit of an interesting story.
We have a couple jawless fish alive today. You can see them. Lampreys and hagfish are pretty good examples nowadays of jawless fish.
Yeah. No, I mean they're the only examples nowadays too.
That's why they're good.
Yeah, they're the best examples.
The best of the business.
So the evolution of jaws is a really interesting story, and this is probably the only real chance we'll get to tell it on this channel. Eventually, we might do videos about major transformations. If we do, we'll definitely talk about it then. But just in the very broad strokes, the primitive fish had 7 skeletal gill arches that went back through the anterior part of the body. The evolution of jaws involved the modification of the first 2 gill arches into the mandible and what we'd call the upper and the lower jaw, right? The gill arch essentially folds over, so the top part of the gill arch sutures to the bottom of the brain case and becomes the upper jaw, or doesn't always suture with it. At times, is a very complex joint allowing kinetic movement, and then the bottom of that gill arch becomes the lower jaw. The second gill arch winds up becoming the hyomandibular apparatus. So this is a supportive skeletal structure with supporting musculature and everything in fish. Your hyoid bone that's right here in your throat is a derivative of that gill arch. And then all of these fish with jaws retain these 5 gill arches after that. I'm sure there are fish groups that lose some of the gill arches. I don't know them offhand. What's interesting about this situation, and this becomes very interesting if you wind up doing human anatomy or something, or like taking vertebrate anatomy courses, because you can see the developmental homology very clearly in some cases, especially if you learn to look for it. Each of these gill arches is associated with a branch of the aortic arch system, and with a discrete branch, with discrete cranial nerves that come off and supply the structures there. And so you've got this segmental anatomy that gets heavily modified in animals like, mammals and reptiles. But you can see that the developmental unity of these structures and their developmental identity is consistent. So the structures innervated, structures that are derived from the first gill arch all get innervated by the same cranial nerves, and will have their blood supply derived from the homologs of the original branches of the aorta that supplied that gill arch. There was a gill between the first and second skeletal arches because the gill slits were between the skeletal arches, and that gill winds up being heavily modified into what you have in your body as your eustachian tube, which is a little hole that penetrates essentially from, within your ear down into your jaw, which is right between the position that those gill arches would be topologically.
Yeah. And when it gets blocked, it sucks.
It's really bad.
Pressure headaches, and then your friends drive you up to a ski mountain, and then when you drive back down, your head feels like it's going to explode.
Yeah, the pharyngeal arches, the eustachian tube's really important. Crocodilians heavily modified their eustachian tube system for pressure equalization while they're underwater, which is a really interesting part of their anatomy. If you've ever pet a skate at an aquarium, which was my favorite part of going to an aquarium as a kid, was always touching the slimy little flappy fish. They've got this big hole behind their eye that'll open and close. That's what we call the spiracle. That is the homolog of your eustachian tube. That's that first gill slit that's been heavily modified. So the reason I bring this up, Scott, I'm not done.
Oh, and I don't want to. I have a thought. I want to say something about embryology when there is a moment before we move on from this.
Sure. I actually, yeah. Well, let me just finish because I want to just get to what we think. So the reason I bring up the spiracle is that a lot of people might assume that the origin of jaws was something that occurred to assist in feeding, right? Because that's what we think of the primary purpose of jaws being, that you use your jaws to eat. There's actually the overwhelming opinion, to my understanding in vertebrate evolution, is that jaws first evolved for ventilating the gills, with the idea being that if you have this big opening at the front of your body that you can mechanically open and close, you can pump water over the gills so that they're constantly getting fresh oxygen. And that's similar to the role provided by the spiracle in cartilaginous fish, where it's opening and closing to do active ventilation, right? Because fish need constant water flowing over the gills for them to breathe.
Fascinating biomechanical question of what that mouth.
Right, that's what that mouth do. And in bony fish, in a lot of teleost fish, especially today, right? This is why the mouth do. In teleost fish, you'll notice that the gill slits are hidden by a structure called the operculum, which opens and closes like that. So those animals don't leave their mouth open, and they don't actuate their mouth to pump water over the gills because the operculum winds up filling that function. So it's opening and closing so that water's being sucked in and blown out. But sharks will generally swim with their mouth kind of open, and they will, when they need to, assist ventilation of the gills by mouth motion. So it's one of those interesting things where as soon as jaws evolved, their function does seem to have been co-opted into feeding. But the original reason to have jaws was probably just to make sure that you could breathe consistently. Or at least that seems to have been the main pressure driving the modification of the gill skeleton, which makes sense because the gills were used for respiration already. Right? So it's a respiratory function that's elaborating and getting more complex before it suddenly becomes able to perform another function. This is a principle that Stephen Jay Gould called exaptation. And this is one of the examples where I think that term is well used, right? You have a structure that develops for one function, and then it winds up being used for another.
Given that fascinating hypothesis for the origin of gills, for the origin of jaws, to aid in respiration, where are this thing's gills? Does it have gills?
No, and I suspect it's because this is the first fish in the game, and they've got like creases in the skin, but it may be that the way that their like internal rigging systems and stuff work, that they don't allow like a hole in the model.
But I'm also just like, this is a slight, just kind of broader question. I was bugged by this a little bit after I saw the model, and I'd been looking around, and I have yet to see a good reconstruction of Dunkleosteus that actually has like nicely rendered modeled gills. And I'm to the point where I'm not even 100% sure where they would be on the animal.
Do these not have? I thought these had an operculum.
I mean, it's not homologous with the teleostoperculum, I'm sure, but
maybe we can email us. I'm just genuinely curious.
So there's a skull diagram on Wikipedia where there's a large space labeled pharynx. That's where the gills would be, to my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's like in this, so where there's this gap between this like kind of cheek plate and then the jaw plate here, then there's like this shoulder plate. I think in this space is where they'd be. And I think these wrinkles in the model are there like...
Yeah, maybe.
Kind of like nodding to the gills being there. And I suspect it may be difficult to add gills to these like rigs and kind of, because it'd just be like a hole. Amelia wanted to say something about embryology.
Yes.
It is so unbelievably unrelated now.
Say it anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so to go back several minutes in the video just to say something that I think is neat and relevant to work that I have personally done. So going back to the gill arches and how we're kind of returning to this idea of homology, right? How there's similar structures being passed down through time that all animals have. And the gill arches are one of those. And where you can see them very clearly in all animals, or in all chordates, basically, which are animals with backbones, or the cord that runs through the backbone, not technically the backbone. Anyways, doesn't matter. In all those animals, you can actually see them in the embryos as they're developing. So that's why if you've ever seen like those comparative charts of different embryos from different animals, they all kind of look the same. And there's a reason for that. It's because, we all share the same parts that we're made of. And if you look closely, the next time you're faced with an embryo, for whatever reason, if you look very closely at the head and neck area, you'll see the first two arches being the upper and lower jaws, and then behind that there will be all these little ridges. And those little ridges will be present in all of the embryos very early on, and then as the embryos develop, they get specialized and moved around and turned into whatever the final structures will be. So anyways, it's cool and it's fun, and that was a project that I hope will pick back up again at some point. I actually described the development of a specific gecko, and a lot of that description is actually what is happening to each of those arches as the embryo moves along in time, which is pretty cool, pretty neat, I think.
I also think it's pretty cute.
Embryology is how we understand a lot of evolution, especially early on when the fossil record was not as informative as it is now. I mean, there's a lot of issues with the fossil record, but embryology was critical. It's a really cool thing.
Time to rank Dunkleosteus.
So
the hunter.
So we won't go to the species viewer.
No.
Crunkelosteus.
Because that'll take too long to load between.
Yeah. Well, this one's really pretty. We can hang out on this one.
It is very pretty.
So Amelia.
Oh right, I guess I am first. Wow, it's been a while since we've done this. Why are we even talking about this? It's an S. It's great. I love it. It's like we've said this whole time, they didn't know, obviously, that Russell was going to shrink the dunk, which is okay. And as we've said, as far as an actual realistic reconstruction of this animal goes before the shrinkening, it's great. I love it. I love that they didn't do the stereotypical plates on top of the skin thing. And that the only thing with that said, I wish there was a little bit more definition between the plates, because if you look at a lot of fish today, you can kind of see where some of the bones are under the skin. But that said, again, it's a soft tissue thing, so we won't really ever know what exactly it looked like. But the colors are great. The whole animal is great. I love the little nostrils. I love the detail that went into like the face and the jaws and like all that stuff we were looking at earlier. It's just wonderful. Yes.
Based.
So the model does not have a lateral line, which is a necessary sense organ that all fish have
Oh,
to
Jesus
detect
Christ.
water current direction. And so this is a D-tier design. That's not my vote. Obviously, this is an S-tier design. I do want to rank something D-tier because I want to become the most critical person on this channel, and I'm disturbed that I'm one of the more positive ones.
He's so mad I'm the most critical.
No, that doesn't make me mad. It's that I'm nowhere close.
You're middle.
I don't like being mid, Alex. But no, this is not the one to take out my frustration on. This is a beautiful design. I echo all the things Amelia said. My only criticism of it would be that it's not the currently or the most recently proposed model for how this animal looked. But I don't think that's the fault of the designers, so I'm not going to weigh that against it. S tier.
And I'll say that I'll agree with everybody. This is for a pre-shrunken dunk, for a king-size dunk. This is one of the best depictions I've seen, especially when we're comparing it to other video game Dunkleosteus. The most prominent other one I can think of is in Ark, and the one in Ark is heinous. But I'm not saying that it's good only because it's better than the Ark one. This is a beautiful creature. I like all of the elements that they added that made it look more unique than just a great white shark with a different head stapled on the front. I do really like the plates are as defined as they are, and its animations are fun and great, and I like its little social as well. Even if I dislike that they made it roar, everything else about it is fantastic. This is an S tier unshrunk dunk.
Is it just me?
It's not just you.
No, you and now.
It is you
Dalton.
next.
God,
Fine.
is it solipsistic in here, or is it just Alex?
Is it just me? No, I was prepared to become a martyr for Russell and give this an A, even though it's an excellent design, because it's not shrunk. But I don't think a social animation has ever just so turned me, and it snapping at the other tail in a way that in life would have probably destroyed that tail of the other dunk. Fantastic. S tier. This feels like a fish. It feels like a mean fish, and I like it.
It makes me sad that we can't see them in an aquarium for real.
Also,
Yeah.
it wasn't Megalodon, so cope and seethe.
Me. I don't. Hang on. What the f with all the hate for Megalodon? Can I address this?
No, it's funny.
Like, you're not cool for disliking a cool thing. In fact, you're almost never cool for disliking anything. I'm gonna make that message out now. Like, if you're defining yourself by not liking things, you should try harder.
Dalton, are you a big fan of Otodus?
I'm a big fan of Carcharocles.
I don't know what that is.
Yes, you do. This is, yeah, Alex, I was also going to go to bat for an A for unshrunkeness, but I can't bring myself to do it. It's an S tier design. It's great. It's so pretty. I like everything about it. I like its little face.
Yeah, this little pug face
Oh
is
my
pretty good.
god!
It's so weirdly
I never thought
cute.
I'd consider a Dunkleosteus to be cute.
This is an adorable creature, though.
Especially also, if you want to see something super absolutely adorably cute, look at its database image in the, hatchery.
Okay.
If you pull up what its, little picture on there, it's unreasonably cute. Look at that. Look at that.
That is cute.
He's so happy!
Ah.
Look at that man.
Oh man.
That is yeah.
This is... Here's my secret. I love fish very much. Just across the board, I love taking care of them. I love learning about them. I love going fishing. They're wonderful. Like, because they're all like I guess not all, some more than others. Like, but this fish ugliness that's also cute that this thing like perfects. Like, I love it. That's why, as I've mentioned several times throughout the night, I love catfish. This has catfish vibes. It's like a flat head with a weird mouth and tiny eyes. Like, love it. Perfect animals.
All right. Well, then I think it's time to move on.
So with that, Dunkleosteus will be in S tier.
Yeah.
Huzzah!
Okay, in that case, I vote that we move on to a different animal, so that when I frantically edit this tomorrow for a Saturday release,
How's everybody
doesn't
excited about our first 5-hour video?
So Shonisaurus or Nothosaurus next? Nothosaurus is going to be the quickest.
Let's do Nothosaurus.
Yeah, let's go
Nothosaurus.
through Nothosaurus quickly.
This is the one I'm least hype about. Let's see him.
Yeah,
Let's see him
all
come
right.
in.
Yeah,
Everybody ready?
let's watch his birth.
Congratulations, it's a monster.
Man.
Oh man. They're so weird. I'm surprised they weren't more creative, like with the tail, or something.
It's based on.
No,
I think they.
I understand it's. Wait, it's based on what?
The cartoon.
Oh yes, no, okay,
Cretaceous.
sorry. That's what I thought you were going to say, and then I misheard. Anyways, I understand that, but I mean, for the cartoon, I can't believe they didn't give it a little more flair.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I believe that. The cartoon designs suck my balls, though.
I do like this little spin.
I dug that.
thing.
Yeah.
That was cute.
I
Like an
also,
otter.
I really like that it has. It's kind of hard to see, but in the exit animation, one of the ones in kind of the back, pushes off with its hands from the hatchery, gate
Ooh.
threshold.
I like it.
Look at him.
Too.
He's
It's a
on land.
dog. It's so cute.
Alex.
I know that it quote unquote sucks, but I think it's cute.
I don't
think it sucks.
I don't dislike it.
I'm not excited about it. It doesn't
But look at the one he
give
just
me
did.
joy.
He's
I think it's the one we knew was coming.
This is just a personal thing for me. I've always thought Nothosaurus is just kind of a dull animal. It's not the game's fault. It's not the show's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's like how James hates the sea. I just particularly hate Nothosaurus.
see, and
Look at these guys.
I like the way. Look at him
Look at him
walk.
walking.
He's walking. Oh my god. And for me, we talked. Actually, to plug our Patreon again. We talked about this in the Discord a little bit. Someone else in there, I forget the name of the book, but the same book that I checked out over and over and over from my school library was this little storybook about Nothosaurus. And that's the only reason I knew anything about it. And it was about a mother Nothosaurus who had to go up on land and lay some eggs, and then the babies came out, and that's all I remember. But I loved this animal very, very much growing up, just because that was one of the couple of paleo books we had at the library back at my elementary school.
I had that exact same book. Amelia and I shared some nostalgia on that, and I will also say, on the topic of it coming up on land and stuff like we just saw, Nothosaurus and along with Archelon actually have 2 separate social animations. There's an aquatic and a terrestrial one.
Ooh.
Based. I have a dumb question. So, are Nothosaurs egg layers or live birth? Do we have any
No.
They could be egg layers. So the general shorthand for those who don't know is if a marine reptile group has lost the bony connection of the pelvis, or any marine tetrapod group has lost the direct bony connection of the pelvis to the vertebrae, that indicates that there's no possibility of them bearing weight on land, which means they're no longer crawling onto land to lay eggs, which means they have to be bearing live young in the water. Now with mammals, obviously, there's the modification that they would have come on land to give birth occasionally before they were completely waterbound. This is obviously something that would have changed during whale evolution. I think pinnipeds always give birth on land still, right? They can walk on land even if they're not that good at it.
There's actually a really interesting way that we have a really cool fossil that shows, at least moves the goalposts a bit on where that transition to giving birth in the water would have happened, at least in whales, is Myocetus. That Myocetus, its name means the mother whale, and we called it that because there's a fantastic fossil of one that has a very, very close to birth fetus preserved inside it. And the cool thing about it is that it's preserved in birthing position with the head facing towards the tail. So it would have given birth head first. And that is something that is essentially the rule for all terrestrial mammals, or all terrestrial things that give live birth, as far as I know. And it seems to also be a rule that if you breathe air and give live birth in the water, you have to flip that and start giving birth tail first.
Right. Otherwise, the baby suffocates.
Right. But
or drowns.
So, one caveat to this, and correct me if I dreamt this or imagined it. I think someone actually did a survey of ichthyosaur fossils that are like preserved with embryos kind of in the near birth position or whatever, and it's like a good mix of them are coming out head first, and a good mix are coming out tail first. So it seems like the babies may have just been able to hold their breath.
Skill issue.
Or, hell, I wonder if some of those are, like, that isn't, like, I mean, while it's supposed to be a rule that babies are born head first, or in this case, if they're aquatic, tail first, you can get born the wrong way around. It happens today.
Yeah.
Yep. I also wonder if potentially the babies were turning, right? Which is obviously a component of most mammalian birth. Like, you don't gestate your entire gestation with your head oriented for a head first birth. That happens later in gestation in mammals. I do wonder if some ichthyosaurs may have been doing that. It can happen quite late. But regardless, the broader point with Nothosaurus is that the pelvis, they still have a true like sacrum, where they have bony connection of the vertebral column to the pelvis. They were still crawling onto the land, so my guess would be that they were kind of doing a sea turtle-like thing where they were coming to land to lay eggs at the very least. Although probably they were more terrestrial than that. Although maybe not. I don't know.
So we talked about what...
There are embryos, right?
What?
I don't know.
Of Nothosaurs?
I don't think they're associated, but like... I don't know.
So we talked about...
According to a DK Find Out page for children, Nothosaurus gave birth to live young.
Ah.
Interesting. I would also can I amend my...
I'm sorry, I'm entering the literature to find out an answer to this question.
Well, you entered the literature. I'm going to amend my previous statement, which is that with ichthyosaurs, the ones that were looked to be having head first birth seem to be earlier Triassic ichthyosaurs. And so it may be that they're capturing, like, it's showing that they developed live birth pretty early, but the advent of turning the babies around to come out tail first happened after that fact, like after that. So that seems to be the conclusion of that research.
Hey, Scott, I know you really want to talk about what the name of this animal means, but I first want to come back with news. We have no friggin' idea.
No clue?
Well, so there was one study that used a couple of different proxies and found that there's basically evidence for both reproductive strategies within nothosauroids. Or maybe it might have even been sauropterygians more broadly. It's Nothosaurus and Pachypleuros. So within Pachypleurosauria, there might be both live bearing and egg laying.
Okay, that's not. I mean, right? Because living squamates, it's pretty variable, right?
Yeah. So seems like there's no easy answer, but it could be either. Now, Scott, would you like to try to segue once more?
I'd like to.
My poor boy.
So we brought up what Myocetus means, but what does Nothosaurus mean? And Nothosaurus's name translates to illegitimate lizard.
Oh,
It's a
And
bastard.
I like that a lot.
bastard
about right.
man.
Bastard lizard.
This is a
Good,
bastard.
I like that.
It is commonly translated as false lizard, but apparently Nothos more directly translates to illegitimate. So I choose to believe that it is bastard lizard.
That's so cool.
That's the best thing I've ever learned about Nothosaurus.
What, Dalton? Why Shonisaurus hate?
What?
Because Nothosaurus is a bastard man.
Because Nothosaurus is a bastard man.
So I like that. I don't like much else about Nothosaurus. I kind of echo Dalton here. I've always found it a little bit bland. Although I remember, the one thing I remember liking about it as a kid was it was the first thing I saw where I kind of made the connection in my head of, oh, this must be transitional between like land-living reptiles and plesiosaurs.
Yeah.
And I was pretty young, and I was like, I thought it was really cool to make that connection and then find out that that's essentially what it is. Right, now, phylogenetically speaking, not so. This is part of a clade that is sister to a broad clade that includes plesiosaurs. As we discussed in the trailer reaction, though, this is almost certainly the ancestral body plan that plesiosaurs are coming from, even if they're not within this group. Right, Nothosaurus aren't on the stem of that. But in general, like, it's... I'm not going to say the model's inaccurate. No. They're just ugly animals. They've got big, flat heads with gnarly teeth. And the largest species of Nothosaurus was 23 feet long, which is too big.
It's way too big.
It snores.
Oh.
Wait, what's way too big?
The biggest Nothosaurus.
The largest species of Nothosaurus.
I don't like that. I don't like that as that big. 23 feet long?
Yeah.
It's giving me a similar level of, like, existential fear, but no, not fully as when I discovered that one species, or discovered, when I found out that one species of Cotylorhynchus is like also like 20 feet long. It's like, no!
They're too large.
We found
It's not supposed to be like this.
But like I would say that like I also find Nothosaurus like I find it dull by itself. Like, it makes me really, really, really wish that we had a whole lot more Triassic critters to make a fun exhibit with. Like, can you imagine having an exhibit in this game with Nothosaurus, Anistropheus, is Atopodentatus in the same time frame? That one's also Triassic,
yeah.
Right? Or is that perm?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, get some Thalatosaurs, get some
Sauropterygids. Yeah.
Which are now officially sauropterygians.
Some placodonts.
Good for them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I find the Triassic seas a bit more interesting collectively than I do individually, with the exception of things like Anistropheus and Apodentatus. I'm having a topodentatus. I'm having a stroke.
That's the one that's like a spade shape, right?
Yeah.
So that in the most recent Sauropterygia paper, that's found to be like sister to placodonts.
Huh.
Not surprised. It's a goof.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Which is wild to me.
Yeah, the Triassic Seaway is just horrific and upsetting.
Everyone's, you know, they're out of high school, they're all meeting in the Triassic Seaway, and they're all like, I gotta figure out who I am. And a lot of it's weird and embarrassing in hindsight.
Everybody's so creative.
I really, yeah. The Triassic's a very wacky time. I do kind of wish that I had, in some ways, followed... Let me rephrase this. I do sometimes wish that I had followed up on my initial desire to research the Triassic period. It's a really cool time in Earth's history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I often think it's the weirdness zone. It's the old, like the lingering Paleozoic freaks, and the beginning of what will become the modern recognizable world.
Yeah. Oh,
Right.
and they're all just vibing.
And that's one of the cool things about Nothosaurus, right? Like, it's just a lizard. It looks like a big lizard. I mean, it's not a lizard.
it's an
obviously.
illegitimate lizard.
It's a
It's a
lizard.
out of
sauropterygia, which
wedlock.
we've already discussed where those go on previous videos, linked here. We don't know. More recent analyses get them sister to archosauromorphs, which maybe,
I could buy that.
I don't know.
I
But,
buy it. It seems like every reptile clade that we don't know about just becomes on the stem of Archosauromorpha.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's how it's defined, right? Where it's like everything closer to something than that thing is to like lepidosaurs. So it's basically just if you're a diapsid, you have two options.
Well,
Yeah.
right. No, I mean, I just find it interesting that we're not finding more things that are like stem lepidosauromorphs. Like,
Mhm.
I would have personally banked on sauropterygians being on that side of the split.
That's because
Then,
Sir, Archosaur means ruling reptile.
And these animals don't.
Lepidosaurs are given they're a vassal state. We give them a little land.
This is the drooling reptile.
Ruling.
I mean, in terms
I
of the
have
design,
nothing else to say about Nothosaurus.
and we've talked about its silly teeth.
I
And
don't
the fangs in the
either,
last
but I
one.
want to make a note. Well, I guess we can see it here. In terms of exhibit design, I like that the rocks actually look like exhibit fixtures.
Yeah.
Like I expected them to be floating, like the Zoo Tycoon ice flows and stuff.
Right.
But the fact that they've actually got like a support structure under there that looks exactly like support structures you see at zoos and aquariums, I think is phenomenal.
And I'd like to point out that they're webbed. The hands
Yeah.
and feet. And there's some debate. I don't know what the current stage of this debate is, but on like whether nothosaurs or pachypleurosaurs would have had kind of like flippers or kind of a in between flipper structure, or if their hands would have been webbed like this instead. I don't know what the evidence is. I mostly see these animals reconstructed with webbed hands and feet, so I guess I'm going to guess that maybe that's where the current consensus is, but I don't know. Oh, I like this one's pattern.
Yeah, I
a lot.
love the colors on this.
Oh yeah. I will also say that like in terms of like the design in game and how it interacts and it behaves and everything, I do kind of wish that this was the only marine creature that could actually escape.
That'd be cool.
Because like even though like the fences are relatively tall and stuff, I would have really liked if it had a similar animation to like the mosasaur shark feeder, where it like dives down really really low and then like swims up very fast, like you see in like James and I saw at the Australia Zoo with that giant crocodile was so impressive that his name is burned into my consciousness. Mossman.
Oh,
That thing was gigantic.
That sounds
Mossman
very
is
cool.
a great animal.
But especially also, if we were actually doing this on the Malta map that we normally do our marine animal episodes on, there's actually not a fence. It's just a beach. So like,
And his job is beach.
That's his job.
his job is beach. This is a man made for beach.
There's a very like, whenever I think of these animals, I think of this like one piece of art in a National Geographic article, like a million years. I don't know when it was from, but it's like a nest,
Oh, with like tons of them.
a beach nest, and they're all like sprinting towards the water, and some big horrible Pseudotsuchians trying to eat the babies. It's a great little piece of art.
Well, should we rank Nothosaurus?
I don't hate it, and I know exactly what it is. But like I said earlier, I wish they would have like done a little more with it, even if it was stupid, just to make it a bit more fun. I don't know. I'm gonna give it an A. It's not bad, as far as I can tell. It's just a bad animal, but what are you gonna do? And like the colors are nice, and I like the little twisties that they do. So, yeah, I'll give it an A.
I'm going to give it a C tier. I don't like it.
Ooh.
Okay.
Spicy.
I find it feels, to me, it feels very 90s. and it feels a little cartoon. It feels 90s in like the way that it would have looked in a children's dinosaur book. And honestly, that's probably because these animals do look a little goofy. Like, they've got these big flat heads, they've got huge mouths.
They're built goofy.
They're built goofy. I'm just thinking more about, would I put this in my park if I weren't trying to be a completionist? And I don't think so. I don't like looking at it, and I think that while the rock is a welcome thing, and it's probably the best we're going to get in the game, I think I would like this a lot more if it could really be more amphibious. Mm-hmm. Seeing it swim around in this big empty void doesn't really give me a lot of satisfaction. I want this to be something that can be like very nimble and be very unique in the way it's moving.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like darting in and out of like coral reefs or nearshore environments looking for fish. And spending some time on the land a little bit like a crocodile, rather than just having a little island they can go rest on. So, C tier. Sorry, guys.
Wow. All right.
Oof.
So I'm not gonna be that harsh, but I won't be as kind as Amelia. I'll give it a B. I think it's solid. I definitely don't like it anywhere near as much as the critters we got in A tier. I also think that it's just a little bit dull. And James, your point of and not dull in pattern. Like I think that it is again gorgeously patterned. It's a good looking, bad looking animal. But James, your point of like, would I put this in my park if I wasn't trying to be a completionist? Honestly, I would agree with you. Probably not. I wouldn't go out of my way to like, oh man, I need to include the Nothosaurus. Although, God, I do love that social
really nice
animation. It's so elegant. It's the only elegant thing about this animal. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good B tier because like would I like to see it in a bit more of a complex, different environment with more interesting animations of they were probably more analogous to how it would have behaved in real life? Yeah, but that at that point I'm asking for Jurassic World Evolution 2 to become Planet Zoo.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't want that.
Well, nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that.
Planet Zoo is
this game, so
right. Yeah, Planet Zoo is not a
this
game. It's a model making simulator that's dressed like a game.
Yeah. So that's what I'll say about Nothosaurus. Is it's a solid B for me.
Guess I'm next.
Yes, it does not leave you again. It is you are next.
We've got so many comments about the four of us that we've convinced Alex there's only four of us.
There are only four. I think this is a B. It's not particularly exciting, and part of that is the fault of the animal for being a Nothosaur, which I do like. I like the vibes of Nothosaurus. It feels like you just took like a monitor lizard and like pinched and stretched it at both ends, and then put it in like a panini press for like a second, and then some guy threw that into the water. And he's like, "There it goes. It's a new animal."
It does have grill lines on it.
But yeah, I mean, this. I think it's part. There aren't any kind of like big risks taken with the design, and I think Amelia's right that they could have been more creative in the show. I will put these in my my lagoons because I like little swimmy guys, and I like that he goes up on land, and that's doing a lot of it for me. So I say a B.
Interesting. Now,
and I will give James the satisfaction of being negative.
I think here. I'm trying to think. I have an interesting position in that I can be kind of strategic in what I give it to control where this lands. And I enjoy having that power. Let me get out of the way. Again, not a fan of the animal, particularly. But I'm not going to... That's not impacting the design. Also, I probably won't put this in my park. I have an opposite complaint. Or I have a complaint to Alex's praise where he likes the little guys in the lagoon. I don't. I find that even the smallest lagoon is so big that the smaller lagoon creatures feel kind of pointless. but that's a game issue and not an issue with this design. I love the social animation. I think the colors are really pretty. I think it does a really good job capturing what Nothosaurus looked like. And I think this is one of the most well-textured animals in the game. Like, I can imagine reaching through the screen at this glitched Nothosaurus right now and like grabbing its neck, and I know exactly what that feels like. It's extremely well-textured. So, despite my negativity towards it, I'm going to give it an S. Because I want to see what that means when we have a C, 2 Bs, an A, and an S. And now we get to suss out, where does it go?
Oh, God.
Well, it had 3 Bs, right?
2 Bs.
I'm sorry,
2 Bs and a
2 Bs and A.
I can't count, yeah. It's either B or A.
So
I think it's B, honestly.
I think it's B.
Yeah.
I think that makes it a B.
2 Bs.
Are we in agreement?
C,
I'm happy with that,
S.
because that's what I said.
Do we want to think about, now that this has happened, actually assigning numerical weight?
No.
The chaos I have sown. I'm so happy.
No, it's fine. No, this is funny.
Oh my gosh. I just remembered something I wanted to bring up about Nothosaurus, but I had
Well,
forgotten.
bring it
about
up. We can just cut it in.
Yeah. One of the things that I also wish that they had actually done for this animal is maybe even had it have some more interesting animations around the lagoon as well. Namely, I wish that it would kind of like dig around in the ground a little bit for looking for some food down there, because we have what are interpreted as Nothosaurus feeding traces from China. There is a air quotes trackway that is attributed to a Nothosaur feeding trace of it kind of like using its front paddle fins to kind of like dig through the ground and like stir things up. They say that it was a rowing motion to disturb buried life and then snap it up. And I would think it would be really, really cool to have an animation that would be like that. Kind of like how James said that something to have it interact with the environment that it's in a bit more.
Well, as you've thought about, as you've been saying that, I've been thinking about the scoring for this creature, and I do agree that it probably that with the scores we have aligned now, it goes in a high B. And with that being said, then I'm going to amend my score, because I was kind of hoping my S could float it up to A. But if it can't, then I'm just going to give this an A, because it'll end up in B tier anyway.
Fine. Nothosaurus gets thrown into B tier. Do we put it in high B?
High.
High B? Do we go above or below Marodactyls?
I think this should go above the unfeathered pterosaur, personally.
I also would just say I'm very happy with this result, because this basically gives marine Marodactylus to me in terms of vibe. If Marodactylus
okay,
were
I was about to
swimming
say,
in
I'm like, where are you going with this?
Shonisaurus, let's get enormous.
This is my favorite one, just saying it
very
now.
rapidly.
Sorry, I need to mitigate a situation over here.
God,
Go mitigate.
look at this beautiful
So
thing.
good.
Now that is a marine reptile.
Yeah.
Now this is pod racing. Now that's a Sando Sea Aqua Monster right there.
Yeah. There's always
This is so great.
It's so good.
Goodness gracious.
Goodness gracious me.
You know
I'm
the design's
impressed.
really great when we just want to stare at it for a while. Like, God, they did such a good job at this. Like, are there criticisms? Sure. But, like,
I don't want to hear him.
they did a good job.
Uh,
Well, okay, let's start with an elephant in the tank.
Hang on. Hold on a second. Look at this skin.
Oh my god.
Oh, that one kicks ass.
That's...
Oh, it looks like paleo maps.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
So pretty.
King.
God,
That one's the coolest one.
it really is. So okay, let's address the big thing about this is it doesn't have a dorsal fin. Ichthyosaurs are pretty famous for having that very dolphin, fishy, sharky kind of body plan that characteristically includes a dorsal fin.
Mm-hmm.
And Shonisaurus, along with Shastasaurus, are commonly depicted as not having dorsal fins at all, or if they have them, they are reduced. And to have a little peek behind the curtain a little bit on some Skeleton Crew stuff, when we were getting ready and getting set up to record tonight, James, Dalton, and I were all looking for just a shred of evidence that they did not have a dorsal fin. And we can't find any. In fact, there is more evidence that they probably did have dorsal fins, in that an earlier ichthyosaur, Mixosaurus, that's its name, right?
Mixosaurus,
definitively does have a dorsal fin, and it is a more basal ichthyosaur. This was also, to plug back into our stuff, first pointed out to us from a user on our Discord, specifically, I want to say your name, Squat Pump. Thank you very much, Squat Pump, for bringing this to our attention.
My
I
goodness.
really like these little excited motions they're doing. But also, yes, thank you, Squat Pump.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Is this a social animation?
Oh, they did it twice in a row. Okay.
Yeah, these are, like, they're cool. I love the way they look when they surface. I would guess that they had a dorsal fin. It's possible it was reduced. I know we were talking earlier about, like, large whales tend to have small dorsal fins. I think some dorsal fin is pretty necessary for stability when you're a gigantic object underwater. Like, you want something.
Mm-hmm.
I would be surprised if they didn't have one at all. Especially given that Mixosaurus, which is basal, has one, and then things more higher up the tree, and Ichthyosaurus also have one. So by phylogenetic bracketing, it's almost a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, I mean, this is just such a beautiful design.
So
this really, it captures that majesty that whales have in a way that I like a lot. Which, funny enough, I would almost say the Jurassic World Mosasaurus does a little bit. I just think the Tylosaurus model in the game lacks it. But we'll talk about that when we do that video. Like, this is beautiful. Like, I really don't want to even talk about it. I just want to look at it. And for me to not want to talk, that means something.
Dear God.
Right.
One might even say they should have sent a poet.
They should have sent a yeah, it's just gorgeous. Now, it does not eat from the shark feeder, right?
No, I've put one optimistically in this tank, but as near as I can tell, it doesn't. It's interesting because Dunkleosteus, to my knowledge, is the first animal in the game that will eat both the fish and the sharks. Unless Kronosaurus also does that.
Yeah, I don't...
No, I think Kronosaurus does too.
Does it eat fish?
Yeah, I don't think we can check, but I don't think Dunkleosteus actually like requires.
No, it doesn't. That's why I was like, oh no, I thought I saw it eat a shark, but its care requirement is only fish, and so I was hoping that Shonisaurus would be the same because its care requirement is only fish, and we've seen it eat some fish already, but it does not appear to eat the shark. Which is a shame.
So I guess we should briefly say something interesting about Shonisaurus. There's a couple of things here. One is that this is like a member of the first lineage of super large marine vertebrates.
I think we can get rid of the marine on that. This is one of the lineage of the first super large vertebrates.
Right. I mean, this one it was alive, unless there was an ichthyosaur that was even bigger and currently was probably the largest vertebrate on the planet. It's really cool.
Alex, don't make a noise and then don't follow it up. Come on.
Well, Shastasaurus would be bigger.
Was Shastasaurus concurrent, was my question. Or were they, like, slightly different temporal?
Oh, God.
I think they were concurrent.
Okay, so, sorry, Shastasaurus would have been even bigger than this, but what I'm getting at is Shastasaurs in general.
Absolutely.
Right, are the large, like, you know, this is the equivalent of, like, the rorquals of the Triassic Carnian seaway. So if Shastasaurus was a blue whale, maybe this is a sea whale or fin whale, like things that are almost as big.
And they're doing it in 50 million years, about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. I'm sorry. That's 20 million years. Because these are like 230. They're getting big fast.
Yeah.
Which also, Shonisaurus and Shastasaurus were contemporaries.
Okay. All right. So Shastasaurus,
which is bonkers to think about.
Now there is a very interesting thing that we teased in the last video, but I'll let somebody else talk about that. But I want to briefly highlight a partially forgotten thing here. And I'm not going to say too much about it, not because I don't care, but because I have not been able to trace down the original source and don't want to say anything that's incorrect. But my understanding, so Shonisaurus fossils come from Western North America. This area was in the, like, Proto-Pacific Ocean. Was that the Iapetus Seaway, or what's the name of that? Is it?
No, the Iapetus is the Proto-Atlantic.
Right, that's what I thought. So this is something else.
I don't know.
Maybe they just call it Proto-Pacific. I don't know. So this area is now on land, but it was covered by ocean at the time. The original specimens, and I think the greatest assemblage of Shonisaurus, comes from Nevada, and to my understanding, this is one of the rare examples of a period where we know that, like, pre-modern peoples discovered fossils and recognized them for what they were. I'm very critical of the hypothesis that, like, all mythology is based on misunderstood fossils. I think that is obviously something concocted by a historian who has never seen fossils in the ground because they just look like weird rocks.
Right.
I would also just say I think it's selling people short.
Right. Yeah. It's like
humans are creative.
Right. Yeah.
Just make shit up.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen a child? Like, they just make up stories constantly.
I've never seen a child.
I know you haven't. I know. If you talk to a child, like, children are always coming up with fictional stories, right? These aren't usually based on things that they've seen, to my knowledge. Like, certainly when I was a kid, it wasn't. It was just like, you know, you have concepts and things you experience in your everyday world, and you tell stories about them. I think it's remarkably insulting to the human capacity for creativity and intuition and innovation to say, like, every myth must be based on a fossil dinosaur bone. But what I'm getting at is the reason that I'm skeptical of this hypothesis, in addition to my philosophical objections to it, is just that fossils are really difficult to recognize in the field. Like, searching for fossils takes a lot of knowledge of geology and comparative anatomy that, like, didn't really exist for a long time. I think it's not a coincidence that paleontology is one of the youngest formal sciences. Because, you know, there's so much supportive stuff that you need to understand to even really begin to contextualize these as remains of living animals. But there are cases where fossils, as exposed at the surface, are recognizable as bones to some degree. And one of those cases, to my understanding, is part of the Shonisaurus bone bed in Nevada, which was apparently, for the local Native American tribes, or tribe, was considered some degree of a sacred site. Now, the reason I'm not being more specific there is that before recording this video, I spent a while trying to chase down the sources I had heard this from, and I couldn't find a lot of concrete information, and I don't want to say anything incorrect about this. But I think it is worth pointing out that this is a case where people were aware that these were remains of living creatures, and they worked their way into mythology and the cultural traditions of the tribe. Which is a really interesting thing, because it's, to my knowledge, almost unique.
Hmm.
Is it possible if it's... Is it possible that that could be the tribe that the animal is kind of tangentially named for?
Ooh, good segue.
Because so Shonisaurus is named after the Shoshone Mountains that are named after the tribe.
Right.
The tribe being the Shoshone.
Right.
The Shoshone, yes.
This could be the case. I mean, I suspect it's the Shoshone tribe, but I don't know the historical history of the different tribes that called this area home. At some point, the Shoshone lived here. It's possible that there were other groups there at different times. So again, I don't really want to speak out of turn on this without having more of a background, and unfortunately, I just haven't been able to find the original sources I read this in, which I was a little frustrated by. And if I do find them, I think we'll try to talk a little bit more about this in another video. But hey, I think we should talk about the fun part of this, which is the Kraken.
Yes.
Well,
Good lord.
I think just because of the first two animals that we did for Dunk and Nothosaurus, there's so many species and they're so widely known, like from all over. Like Nothosaurus is Europe and Asian. Dunk is whatever. It's all over the place. I think this guy is only known from one locality, right?
I think so.
Shonisaurus?
Yes, I believe so. It is... Yeah,
It is
the
Lunning Formation?
Lunning Formation, yeah.
And I'm looking through this, and all we're going to say about the environment this animal shared, that this animal inhabited, is there are a lot of invertebrate fossils, which is actually kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then just Shonisaurus and some fish. Everything
There's a
new.
conodont.
Everything new to live and die far away from this big animal. To respect its space, except for one creature, viewer. Segue. That one creature was also an invertebrate.
That definitely existed.
That was totally real. The Triassic Kraken. Now,
The Triacan.
dear viewers, you might recall that we did a Q&A. Is this going to be publicly available, the Q&A, before I make a fool of myself?
Yeah.
It will.
Okay. Where we all talked about what we'd like to find in the fossil record. And this man pretended that he found what I wanted to find, which was an individual at GSA, which is the Geological Society of America, presented possibly a talk the first time. I knew a poster circulated for several years after that.
At GSA.
Of Shonisaurus remains. Specifically the vertebrate. And now ichthyosaurs are pretty cool. In that they're reptiles that have re-evolved fish vertebrae. Their vertebrae are
super
discs,
bonkers.
With just two little articular facets for the ribs, and that's it. They look like fish vertebrae. It's horrible, and we all love it. Anyway, an individual reported that the vertebrae were arranged in a shape loosely resembling that of a large cephalopod, and that this was a piece of art made by a hyper-intelligent Triassic cephalopod. He extrapolated that the size of this organism would have had to be in excess of 200 feet long for it to manipulate the vertebrae in such a way. He also, I think, early on, I don't know if this was maintained through other claims, says he found a beak.
Oh, I have not heard that.
That would also
I hadn't heard that bit.
A cephalopod of great size. I've never seen the beak. I don't know any more about that. Now, the argument he says is cephalopods will arrange stuff in the sand and like art. This is obviously a correct and flawless hypothesis and very cool. And don't think about it. Don't interrogate it any further. Don't think about, I don't know, maybe vertebrae that are shaped like circles could fall. If the spinal column just kind of did that and then got pushed around by some water, really anything could look like a squid, because all a squid is a slightly less chaotic end and a more chaotic end. A squid is entropy.
We need to drive home to the viewers is that The idea that this is a giant squid that's twice the size of a real-life giant squid that is making a self-portrait, not only depicting its tentacles, but like depicting the part of its body it uses to interact with the world. This is the equivalent of Da Vinci drawing human hands. Like, this is... It speaks to a level of intelligence that almost matches humanity in the Carnian seas.
There is a piece of art that I have found that I hope we can use in the video and pull up of a giant squid just like holding a Shonisaurus that looks so startled to be in this situation.
Do we know, just while we're kind of talking about this kind of thing, are there any other animals besides people that represent themselves? Because, like, a lot of animals build things or leave traces. I don't know if and, you know, if you think about, like, animals that paint at zoos, they're kind of just going through the motions and are trained to do those actions for treats. But are there any other animals that make art or draw themselves that we know of?
That's a very funny picture. Holy crap.
To my knowledge, no, Amelia. Oh,
sorry.
Well, wait, I'll wait a moment.
No, you gotta look at the...
Where did it get sent?
The Facebook group.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Oh, my lord.
Oh, it's so much lower. It's not bad, but it's like a lower quality than I was expecting.
And it's like he's making art while he's doing it. He's arranging vertebrae, so it's like he's using it as a reference. He's like, hold on, I need this angle. Like, just twist the Shonisaurus. Better light.
See, what this whole discussion of, like, of this Kraken drawing a self-portrait in the sand with these bones of Shonisaurus, it's just reminding me of that one scene in How to Train Your Dragon where they're first becoming friends and Toothless picks up a stick and then like runs around and is like dragging it in the sand, and the music is swelling like he's drawing this big amazing portrait, and they're all looking around at it, and then it zooms out and it's just random undefined scribbles in the ground, and then it's just like, oh, okay, it's an animal.
Well, and so use that as an example of my point. Like, some animals like do things like that, or in the case of Toothless in that movie, what's happening is he's mimicking what he saw Hiccup doing. Like, it's just kind of it's not being trained, so to speak, but it's a similar thing where an animal observes an action and they repeat it, or something like that.
It's
but
not
like
until the third movie when he actually does it for real.
He can do a portrait. No, anyways, doesn't matter. But so yeah, I'm thinking. So back to my question. Like, the animals that I would suspect could possibly do such a thing are, of course, other primates or like parrots, maybe. But like, even then, like,
sorry, Amelia, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, in nature, I don't think, like, unless the only thing I can think about is, like, it depends on what your definition of person is, if you include Neanderthals or not. But given that they're on the same lineage, I imagine that that's, like, an ancestral thing.
Well, right, and I'm actually not aware of whether we have any definite proof that Neanderthals did art representing themselves. They certainly decorated their own bodies with, like, jewels and things like that, but I don't know if we're confident that any cave paintings are attributable to them.
I mean, as far as I know, they aren't signing their names of, hello, this was made by Grug, the Homo Neanderthalensis.
Right, and I want to be clear that I don't exclusively mean self-portraits, but even like animals drawing other animals.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I don't know if we know that Neanderthals did any of that.
Okay.
I think there might be some people who think that some of the cave paintings are by Neanderthals, but I don't think that's a general opinion. To my understanding, a lot of the major paintings are a little bit younger than most Neanderthals are, which would indicate they're probably anatomically modern humans. That said, like, it was a long-standing debate whether Neanderthals had any sort of artistic drive at all, like whether they would have had, like, ornamentation on their clothing or, jewels or things like that. And we found enough objects that it's pretty clear that they liked to be fancy.
Right.
So they like decorate their clothing and everything. I don't think that had extended to like a direct artistic representation of the world around them. Yes, Scott?
I'm reading through on animal produced art, and I was just made aware that there's a pig that they would set up a canvas and it would draw on it, and its name was Picasso. And it makes me very happy that is a thing that exists in this world.
He was a French.
So Scott. That's actually called money laundering, and that's what happens when you get a pig and have it do art, and then somebody's like, this is actually worth something.
Have you seen Documentary Now?
No, I haven't.
So there's an episode that's a spoof of My Octopus Teacher.
Oh god.
Which is My Monkey, like My Monkey something, and the whole joke of the episode is that like he's giving the monkey gifts, like to show, like he gives him his watch, and there's just like one of the guys who's working there has trained the monkey to steal things from people, and like just steals all this guy's and is like his wife leaves him. It's so funny.
It's like I just keep giving her gifts.
So, but I just want to say one more thing about Amelia's question. The only animals I'm aware of that have some sort of very well documented symbolic understanding of self that I would consider some precursor to making art depicting oneself are African elephants, which are known to do this behavior when they go to what are so-called elephant graveyards, which were long thought to be these areas that elephants knew to go to die. It turns out that elephants in the wild that die of old age don't die of old age in the way that we do, where our bodies break down. They die of starvation because their teeth wear down to nothing, and they can't process vegetation. Mm-hmm. I mean, something's going to set your lifespan. It sounds kind of messed up considering that we usually die when our hearts give out or something, but like, I don't know, it's some part of the body fails first. That's just the rate limiting step for elephants.
Yeah,
that said, it sounds painful.
Sounds gnarly.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's not good for them, but like they're obviously well post-reproductive, and so it's not going to. It's not going to get out.
No, I mean, like on an individual basis, that's not a great way to go, is what I'm saying.
Oh no, I mean, that's true, and that gets at why they go to these graveyards. There are areas near water where there's soft plant material, so they're trying to basically gum like moth plant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
They're going where they can persist for as long as possible.
So yeah, in a sense, that like elephant graveyards are a thing. That there are large accumulations of elephant bones in certain areas, but it's not because of the commonly said myth of that, like, oh, they know they're going to die, so they go to a special place to do so.
Right. It's like if you started finding like old people's skeletons in like a golden corral.
Hold on. You don't go to a graveyard to die. You die, then you go.
But that's what the skeletons are.
No, hold on. Oh, they're going to the they're going to the elephant graveyard to die. That's not how it works. I'm gonna.
Oh my god.
George go back in time and make this semantic argument to the people who came up with that terminology. You morons! It's more of an elephant hospice.
It's
elephant retirement home.
It's the elephant mortuary. You dumb idiots! How dare you?
It's not the Victorian era where you walk up to your open grave and then like a craven-looking man hits you with a shovel, and that's how your life ends when you're 72. If you make it that far,
that's how I'm trying to go out.
The point is that when elephants walk through these areas,
real fast, I do want to ask Alex, as an olive branch peace offering between the two of us, will you be the craven man to beat me to death with a shovel?
I already picked out your shovel, Scott. You all have a shovel.
You are a good friend.
Yeah. Well, Amelia's the youngest of all of us. She's going to have to be the one who has to bash Alex and send him into the grave.
Oh no.
I'll be using a lot of your blood to stay alive.
Oh, right. So the point I'm trying to make about the elephant graveyards is that when elephants walk through them, they appear to be aware that they are walking past elephant skeletons. And they have a very, I think a pretty well-documented ritualized behavior where when they find the skull of another elephant, they touch their trunk to their own forehead and then touch it to the forehead position on the elephant skull. Where they do that. So it seems to be like... Right, they see them. Awa hears them. I think that is probably the best evidence we have in a non-human animal of, that sort of symbolic understanding.
Birds. some birds.
What do you mean?
Like, I know that there are documented cases of corvids.
Many such cases.
Yeah, many such cases. Corvids, basically, like, it always gets referred to with the glib, like, murder investigations.
Right.
Pun. Of upon seeing a dead crow that they will gather around and kind of, like, inspect it, but, like, it's hard to put any sort of, like, any specific intentionality to it. Of, like, I've heard everything from, like, this is a mourning thing, of they are recognizing and mourning this fallen animal, to it is more of a utilitarian of, can we figure out how this guy died so we can avoid that in the future, sort of thing. But I would also say that, like, while it hasn't necessarily been, at least... Sorry, I heard the cricket again. I thought I killed it yesterday. While it hasn't been necessarily documented, at least to my knowledge, that I would not be surprised if parrots and stuff could have that level of understanding, because at least some of the ones that have been able to learn how to communicate seem to display a level of self-awareness and cognizance that is baffling. Like, Alex the Grey Parrot stuff is, like, science fiction.
This is, like, what I'm getting at is beyond a recognition of self, because, like, a lot of primates can do that, and a lot of cetaceans can, like, recognize themselves in a mirror. It's more like the next step of being able to then represent yourself.
Yeah. And I've never heard of that happening outside of specific trained situations where, like, elephants are trained to paint elephants.
Right. But I guess, like, my point with the skull thing is not necessarily like an intelligence thing, because I think there are a lot of animals that have things that close, but it's like the recognition of skeletal remains of their own species.
Yeah.
And, like, the correct identification of the anatomical feature is, like, pretty cool as a level of understanding. Like, in the way that we kind of intrinsically understand that we see a human skull when we see it. Like, I don't know. It's the thing that kind of, that Amelia's comment piqued in my mind. That was just the thing that came to mind, was just that sort of thing I could see as a precursor to making an artistic representation of one species or self.
Yeah,
or other species.
I get the other, like, I guess, limitation that other animals have is they don't have hands. They can't actually make things to the same level of detail and stuff that we can. Because, like, otherwise, I'm convinced that if cetaceans had hands, they'd be making artwork, and we would have a second civilization, basically, that we would have to deal with. Because they've got a lot of crazy, complex stuff going on that we don't even fully understand, you know? And I think...
Depends on the cetaceans. If dolphins had hands, they'd make weapons.
Yeah, no.
They would not make art.
No. Well, they would make art, but it would be like, you know, in The Bug's Life, where the kids make, like, the leaf painting of the war?
Yeah.
Where, like, everyone's dead. Like, that's what dolphins
do.
Do we think any cephalopods?
Huh?
Do we think
I don't think about stuff.
Like, do we... Because, I don't know, there's stuff like... Obviously, there's, like, the mimicry stuff, which how much of that is, like, response versus intelligence, but, like, I don't know, some of that, like... Stuff like mimic octopus and stuff like that, like, they have to... an awareness
they know
of things in their environment and how to, like, make themselves look like that.
I'd highly recommend reading the book Other Minds on that. It's really, really good.
Bought it and then never read it, and it's on my shelf of things that I'm like, I should read this.
Oh, it's great.
Well, reading will come later in life. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Do
So
we have anything else we'd like to talk about in regards to
I have a question. Do we want to actually talk about Shonisaurus and not the
I would
made
like
up
to say
Kraken?
a thing I've been trying to say for 10 minutes.
Please.
Which is that I have found that there is cave art attributed to Neanderthals in Spain. It's like 68,000 years old. So it predates the presence of modern humans in Spain. So Neanderthals apparently did have the capacity for that.
Is it good, or does
it doesn't suck?
I mean, I wouldn't put it in music. No, it's art. It's cave art. I don't know.
The little
Well, and
avatar
I'm
from
sorry.
Avatar.
How old is it?
68,000 years old.
Oh,
Okay. I'm trying to think. I was, yes, okay, because the Venus of Willendorf is 30,000 years old, and that museum in Vienna had another statue that was attributed to like 40 or 50,000 years old.
Wait. What's 30,000 years old?
The Venus of Willendorf.
Is that the curvy statue?
Yeah.
That's 30,000 years old?
30,000 years old. And here, now I took a picture of the other one and how old it was. I need to finish this thought and then we can move on.
Oh my god, I thought that was
because
like...
it blew my mind. No, I was sitting, I didn't realize it was that old either, and I was sitting there in front of it and I was like, wait a damn minute. Oh my god. Like, it's so cool.
It's one of the oldest pieces of art from humans we know.
Damn.
There it is. Yeah, so I mean, there's my picture of it. But I mean, I saw it, it was cool. And then there's this one, also in that room. I believe from a similar area, and this one's 36,000 years old.
Holy shit.
That's rad.
I was kind of thinking
I know-
of that stuff was like, go back with temp... No, what's the city where it doesn't have any doors, but they're like ladders and...
Machu Picchu?
No, it's like 9,000 years. It's like the oldest city.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name.
Çatalhöyük?
Çatalhöyük.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Damn. Yeah, I had always assumed like it was like that old. Not.
No.
30,000.
Holy shit, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, and the other one being 36,000. Like, stupid question, but I don't care about people. When did modern people originate?
200,000 ish.
Roughly.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the migration into Europe is quite a bit later.
Yes.
I don't remember the exact dating. I think it's 40 to 50,000 years ago.
Okay.
That is the
I think that sounds right.
it's by 43,000 years ago. They're in Europe. 55,000
Yeah, 'cause
years ago in the Middle East. Yeah.
And that would be I'm thinking about the statues. Okay, so that's well within the possibility of being from
Wow.
sapiens.
And it's quite likely because Neanderthals kind of disappear pretty quickly. I think as a result of that, whether that's through conquest or genetic subsuming or whatever happened,
Or both.
Yeah.
But anyway, Shonisaurus is an ichthyosaur.
He is.
What?
It predates Neanderthals by a lot.
What is an ichthyosaur?
I don't care.
Fish lizard.
Let's move on.
Icky.
It's an eldritch.
We don't really
it's
know.
We have no idea. They're reptiles of some sort.
They're diapsid reptiles. Almost certainly. And,
We know that.
And they swim.
Yeah.
And they were almost definitely the first. And they probably arose in the Permian.
Yeah, I think probably most of these major marine reptile groups have some origin in the Permian. But they're definitely the first to like go kaboom.
Oh yeah, they were also probably the first to be fully aquatic secondarily.
Yeah, and I honestly they're secondarily aquatic in a way that no other vertebrate group, even today, has done. Which we kind of alluded to earlier in the video, which is they've turned their vertebra back into fish vertebra.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of really weird stuff with their skeletons. One of the things that always freaks me out about them is it's really common for a lot of marine reptiles to get more digits in their flippers and stuff like that.
Specifically more bones in the digits. They still have 5 fingers. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, more bones in the digits. And then there's ichthyosaurs that actually, I would say that is there an argument that they make more digits?
Oh, yeah, they're probably
they make more.
They're horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. They have it's a mess.
It looks like a cobblestone road. It's disgusting. I don't like.
We've got some in the teaching collection that have like 7 identifiable things.
Fingers, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think
Each of which
pointing
also
out,
has more than a normal number of phalanges per digit, right? Like they're both doing
phalanges. Yes,
per phalange.
they have both.
Mhm.
It's so
Right.
Yeah.
so as Amelia kind of mentioned, it's pretty common for like sauropterygians will add digits, and marine mammals will stretch their digits. But like if you were to like get all the horrible flesh off, you still have kind of a hand. There are some sauropterygians that really make a paddle. What ichthyosaurs are doing is they're just making a plate of horrible little bones.
They're like little
Discs.
hexagon.
Yeah, like if you
tablets,
took all the
right?
soft tissue off, you'd still have something that just looks like a flipper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the plesiosaur that I've been working on in the lab, like it still just has 5 digits.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those digits might have 13 phalanges,
Jesus.
but
And that's something. So, like, if you really want to see what we're talking about to an extreme degree, go on Google, find yourself an ichthyosaur flipper and find a mosasaur flipper. Because these are both animals that have flippers that are reptiles that are adapted to living in the water, but you'll see what we mean immediately. Because
or even better.
mosasaurs.
Oh, sorry. go
Okay.
on.
I would say mosasaurs do 2 things. They elongate the bones in their fingers, and some of them do tack on extra bones in the fingers. But it's nothing as crazy as even plesiosaurs. Because, like,
No.
backing up a second here, the thing that gets me about ichthyosaurs is that we're finding them like this. There's, like, barely any early forms or transitional forms. Like, they all have these horrible little cobblestone flippers. Like, right? Like, it's not like, again, like, working on mosasaurs is what I'm most familiar with. But, like, we have a pretty good, like, point A to point B situation with them, right? We've got little lizards with little hands, and then big ones that have longer fingers, and some of them have kind of get stockier like bones in the fingers, but not cobblestones. But that's because mosasaurs were only like from little lizard to big monster, it's like 5 to 10 million years, which is ridiculously fast. These things were evolving for God knows how long before we found them. It's just, they're horrible.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. Yeah, so they have an impressive early diversity. Like in the Triassic, there's stuff that looks like Shonisaurus. The very earliest, most early branching ones we have are kind of small with short faces, and there are some more primitive aspects of their skeletons. And their sister group is this weird thing called Hupasuchians, which
we just did a short about.
are even weirder. But they at least...
The Hupasuchians are worse in every way.
Well, they look like something that was at one point a land animal, though.
This is true.
Like, there are limbs, and do they have osteoderms?
Yes.
It's horrible. A horrible creature. And apparently one of the oldest ones is already a filter feeder. Yay!
And not just a filter feeder, like a really, really weirdly advanced filter feeder. Like, with aspects of its skeleton that even hint that it had soft tissue filter feeding apparatus and stuff that was not 100% the same as baleen, but in a ballpark. Like, it's... They have a loose jaw connection. They have an unfused symphysis at the front, so they could do the whole, like baleen whale, like, open up the big goulard...
Oh my god.
Like,
oh my god.
Thing, like, and it's 3 feet long. It's tiny. It's the size of an iguana. Like,
James looks like a jazz musician right now. Sorry, like
He does.
he's doing a
He kinda
cosplay
looks
of
like Adam
Jason
Sandler.
Mraz.
Oh, I was still
What do
him
I
up.
look more
He just called you Adam
You
Sandler.
You kind of look like Adam Sandler, which
Hey, he's
he's a good-looking
Jewish
guy.
boy from New England, from Long Island.
I'm neither
Waiting
of those
for them
things.
to
I'm
play
neither Jewish
Gangnam
nor from New
Style.
England.
I corrected myself. I said Long Island. Yeah, the group's diversity kind of takes a hit in the late Triassic, and these it's Parvi. God, what's the name of the clade? Parvi. I'm gonna have to look it up.
What are you asking about?
Parvipelva. Thank you myself. So it's Parvipelva that is kind of this group that persists from the late Triassic, and then is the group that's around for the rest of the or almost the rest of the Mesozoic. It appears that ichthyosaurs don't actually make it to the end of the Cretaceous. They get to a bit in the Cretaceous, and while we at the Skeleton Crew are often folks who will be like, the fossil record's incomplete. These are wet creatures, and I'm more inclined to believe like actual, like the fossil record's a more honest representation of their diversity, and the fact that we just like there should be some of these in the Mid-Atlantic Seaway if they were still alive, and there are zero. Or maybe they're deep water specialists. They have super big eyes.
Well,
Maybe
I
they
was
were
actually going to
upland
say,
animals.
they're actually mountain. They're montane.
They're mountain.
No, I think if they were anywhere in the latest Cretaceous, like ophthalmosaurs are one of the major radiations that are making it into the Cretaceous, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ophthalmosaurs are known for their giant, enormous eyes.
And they got blubber, right, Dalton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So-
not just enormous eyes, but I think that there's also to bolster what you're saying. What you're going to say is I think that there are adaptations in the skeleton that I do not know off the top of my head that do also indicate that they were deep divers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think there's histological evidence that they were experiencing like
Oh,
a
cool.
little bit of decompression sickness,
Yeah, so maybe they were.
or that they
Right.
or that they were evolved to deal with that kind of diving, like you see in deep diving mammals.
Right. So I guess my point is that if they were around at all, they may have been only like open ocean animals.
By that point.
By that point. And, open ocean, that's not a place you're going to find fossilized on land. That's not a place you're really going to find fossilized at all.
Not until I start my new venture.
Right. You're going to take over from the
Seafloor.
Titanic tours.
Seafloor expeditions for fossils. We're just gonna go down and cut out like 10 by 10 foot cubes of seafloor and
But-
get
Just
fossils
shoot
out
it
of
up.
it.
Right.
So-
I
No,
I could...
before you start, I have a fun fact that we're going to cut, but it's a super fun fact. James, continue with the point you're going to make.
Well, I mean, it's just like this is an area that we're never going to have fossils of, right? Like the Atlantic Ocean existed in the Cretaceous. If you were in the middle of it and you died, you're not going to get fossilized. So if ichthyosaurs existed but weren't living in like shallow coastal seas that are where we find marine fossils, we'd never find them.
Right.
It's possible they were enjoying the deep ocean, right?
And let the record also show that after we get past the the late Jurassic, the abundance of marine fossils decreases quite a bit because that's when bone-eating worms evolve.
Mm.
That's actually pretty
And-
cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a project on them. A long time ago.
It really seems like those bone-eating worms that you see in like these huge mats on whale falls and stuff like that probably evolved in response to the diversification and population explosions of marine reptiles, and then adapted to also survive on marine mammals later.
So, right. So if you want to make a fossil of of something in the open ocean, it's got to float, land on the abyssal plain, and then not be scavenged, and is also going to be in sediment that was almost certainly never going to... Well, I mean, maybe in like 100 million years might get moved onto like somewhere pinched between some strata.
I mean,
If you're
yeah,
lucky.
it would be rare, like, to get oceanic crust up that
Not much
high.
deposition down there.
No, yeah, that'd be...
Yeah, I mean, you're burying it into, like, the calcareous ooze.
Mhm.
Ooh,
Like-
my favorite kind.
That was my nickname in college.
That's a bad nickname.
A notable feature of it is that it has teeth.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes!
And it was thought for quite a while that Shonisaurus actually pulled a Lemusaurus and ontogenetically lost its teeth. But that turns out to not be the case. It's just that they're not like super well seated in the skull, and some of the larger specimens just didn't have teeth.
Yeah, but they have them in the model.
But
And-
they have them in the
yeah,
model.
and-
They're very nicely modeled in the model. They also they are pretty. They're robust teeth that are pretty strongly recurved. They have the what are those
Carinae.
ridges in a carinae?
Yeah,
Not
Correct.
not the ridges. Like Carinae, I thought were only like the blade edges, but the actual striation. I would call in mosasaurs they're called either striations or fluting.
Right. No, I think Shonisaurus has carinate teeth. Like, I thought that's what Scott was referring to.
Are you talking about?
No, don't give me the benefit of the doubt. I was trying to say the thing Amelia's talking about.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
yeah,
then,
then
sorry.
those aren't. Yeah.
Yeah, so they got big teeth. And so it was a proposed ontogenetic loss, right?
Yeah. But turns out that's not the case. So it looks like, even though it is often like these guys are often depicted as kind of whale analogs, it seems like they probably wouldn't have been at least kind of like the gentle giant kind of whale analogs, and if anything, kind of, again, as said by our Discord member earlier, possibly more like sperm whale analogs, which is neat. So maybe they were eating the Triassic crack.
Maybe they were beaked whales.
Well,
I love beaked whales.
Beaked whales are so weird.
Sorry, Dalton, you go ahead.
I was going to say the other point that our Discord member made is that even a sperm whale analog isn't the best, because apparently, like, it predates the presumed evolution of kind of large masses of cephalopods, like in large, them existing in kind of large abundance for these things to chase. They also don't seem to have any diving adaptations.
Well, sperm whale analogs in the sense of
of being big and having teeth. Yeah,
being big, having teeth, eating large things that can kind of fight back.
Maybe they're orcas.
They're a bit big for orca. Like, I don't know. Like,
Orcas.
Maybe they represent a niche that isn't around today.
Yeah.
That's impossible. Everything must have a direct real-world analogy that exists right now that I can use to help me understand the inescapable complexity of the past in biology.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, you're right.
Right. Yeah, of course, the orcas. Thank you.
maybe we can imagine where we're going to rank this guy.
Oh,
Yes.
just off the top of my head, someone told me that apparently the bite, like, ichthyosaurs have an incredibly strong bite force.
What?
Really?
Yeah, at least like in their posterior jaws.
Is it strong or is it quick? I could see them being snappy.
Hold on. Everyone start thinking about what they want to rank it. I'm gonna pull this up.
I know what I'm going to.
As do I.
Yeah, I don't really need to think on this one.
No, well, the only thought that I have to have about this one is, like, I'm digging this penguin situation, and because it's a penguin, basically. Like, as we've established now talking about it.
Okay, hold on.
Does it qualify for H tier?
I mean, that's where I'm going to put it, yes.
Okay.
The large skull of Temnodontosaurus. Blah, blah, blah. This is the sea dragon specimen. Our results show that the bite force would have been over 30,000 newtons.
I don't know
Put
what
that in a
means.
unit I can respect, please.
I need to look up what bite forces are in newtons.
Put that in units of T-Rex.
Or even, like, an alligator.
How
I could
many
relative to an
individual-
alligator.
How many individual Isaac Newtons standing on a point? How many Fig Newtons stacked on some books?
The bite of an alligator is 16,000 newtons, so this would be twice as strong as a gator.
That's
That's a pretty good bite.
substantial.
Yeah.
It's T-Rex. I can't believe I'm looking this up. I feel like a
I'm
charlatan.
looking it up right now. Hold on. T-Rex is 88 million newtons.
What?
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 This is a fake unit of measurement.
That can't be right.
What? Alligators is 16,000 and T-Rex is 88
Okay,
million.
adult T-Rex have 35,000 newtons in a bite.
Wait a minute. Oh,
I
I'm
thought
sorry.
you were supposed to be
per square
Mr.
meter.
Math.
It's newtons per square meter, not just newtons. It's 88 million newtons per square meter.
80 million. Oh my god, who do I win?
Hey everybody, you heard it
T-Rex
here.
is so cool.
Doc-
88
Doctor.
million newtons.
Dr. James Napoli, world-renowned Tyrannosaur expert, has said here that if a Tyrannosaur looked at the ground and bit it, it would end all life on Earth.
It would ignite the
Every bite was strong enough to split the atom.
That's its hunting strategy.
Every time T-Rex bit something, it was like it would like hold its head in its hands like Cillian Murphy.
It's Chompenheimer. Stepping through the destroyed husk corpses of Edmontosaurus, contemplating the world it hath wrought.
Like in the Eternals.
Okay, hold on. Just for a little bit of comparison. Apparently, the SpaceX Falcon 1 pushing a rocket up requires 1 million newtons.
T-Rex
powerful.
That's where they went.
They can propel 8 rockets worth.
Shot themselves.
They just pointed their face at the ground and spit.
We say all the time that T-Rex was built different. It's a rocket ship. It's got...
Oh my god, that's so good.
They turned Triceratopses into diamonds when they bit them. The carbon in their bodies.
They were enriching their own uranium.
It kills a Triceratops. You fool, I'm only using 1% of my power. If I would use 10%, I would create a small black hole in my mouth.
Dear viewer, can you tell that it is 1 in the morning?
Hey, that was pretty funny. I think that would be funny.
No, this is very funny. I'm just saying the general state of disarray.
We're keeping all this in the video, obviously.
Anyway,
so I just want it to be said that I converted PSI to newtons per square meter, which is a different unit than just how many newtons.
Anyway, so 30,000 newtons is close to T-Rex, which is 35. I don't know about the methodology. I'm reading to you what I've found on the internet, but if true, that's pretty cool.
Pretty big.
Big if true.
Yeah.
Big if true.
These would be some scary predators.
If they're like T-Rex, they could do the pistol shrimp thing and superheat the water around their bites to the surface of the sun.
Scott, there was no KPG impact. A single T-Rex tried to feed. The resulting shockwave caused a tsunami that briefly buried the continent of North America under feet of water and scraped the Earth's crust bare, exposing the mantle to the surface for the first time in Earth's history.
I'm just picturing like an animation of like a T-Rex like going in on an Edmontosaurus, biting down, and then just like goes like that, and then it's just like time slows down and it just like white just animals are getting half their bodies burnt away from just being too close. It's that extremely oh no, I'm stopping there.
Okay, so
let's rank Shonisaur.
Let's rank Shonisaur.
It's H tier. This is it may be large, but I raised you this. It looks like a penguin, and penguins are cute and small, like Camalocephaly. So it's an A. It's so good. I like it. I don't care that it doesn't have a dorsal fin, like really, but that's just because I don't pay much attention to ichthyosaurs. I know, but they're horrible. I don't want to comprehend them. I pretend I do not see it. But yeah, like, I mean, given that they should have had, or like, given that everything else around it has a dorsal fin, then yeah, like, no have a dorsal fin. But look at this. It's so cool. It's so pretty. It looks like a river dolphin. Like we said a very long time ago, I have no idea how long ago, when we started this section, that it has, like, the grace of a whale. Like, it does. I like it a lot. It's very pretty. Yeah, no, it's just, It's a real champ, real hero, H tier.
Every so often, they release an animal for this game that makes me not just like kind of interested in playing it to see the animal, but desperate to play it to make a park that is basically centered around its existence.
Mm-hmm.
This creature for me right now is Shonisaurus. Like, I felt for a long time that this game needed a truly beautiful and breathtaking large marine creature. The Jurassic World Mosasaurus is kind of almost there. I don't feel like the Kronosaurus or the Tylosaurus really hit it in this game. This is just gorgeous. It's so beautiful. It's so elegant. I think I would weep if I saw it in real life. That's why I'm ranking it D tier. I don't like to cry. Obviously H tier. H tier.
Mike's Dunkleosteus.
Likewise, this is such an obvious H tier. This is an almost perfect depiction of the animal. I wish it makes me wish for way more features in the game. Like, I wish we had different types of feeders. I wish we had larger prey that it could eat than just the tiny, tiny, tiny little tuna in comparison. That's like this thing scooping up ants. I wish we had Shastasaurus as well. I'd love to see a Shonisaurus, that Shastasaurus tank. But like, this is unbelievably beautiful. Do I wish it had a dorsal fin? Yeah. Do I care that it doesn't? Not enough to not have it be H tier. The sounds it makes, the patterns it has, everything about it. Beautiful. Perfect.
Yeah.
Based. What'd you put this in?
It's been H's down the board.
Okay. It's probably my favorite marine reptile. It's so good.
The clicking. Oh god.
Yeah, I think I gotta give this an H. It kicks ass. It's big. It's a guy. I don't know. I don't think we ever figured out if it's scaled. I think it's even scaled correctly, right, Dalton? Like, this is more Shonisaurus than Shastasaurus sized.
I think so. It might be a little big for a Shoni. It might be a bit closer to Shasta, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, that pattern we saw earlier where it's like got like a blue, like almost like a map on its back.
Mm-hmm.
And like the white with the...
That's
I think that they...
one.
Yeah. I think that they say in
I've been
game
looking
it's
at this
15. It's 15 meters, which is
Perfect.
in the ballpark, but on the high end of what we know that that Shonisaurus could be.
Yeah, this is an H. He's my hero. There goes my hero.
That's very interesting.
Watch
It's
him
also,
as he goes.
What's cool is you can use this as a yardstick for the mosasaurus, which I did earlier this morning. And the mosasaurus in game is not as oversized as you think. It's like maybe a quarter again as big as this.
Really?
Yeah, it's not tremendously bigger. It's bigger,
Because
but not
the
like...
one in the movie definitely has an
Oh.
88 million Newton bite force.
I'm gonna put this in C tier because I'm a bad man. No, it's H tier. This is Alex, you said it best in that this is my favorite marine reptile in the game. It so very quickly and abruptly became my favorite marine reptile in the game. This is such a tremendous achievement of design that it has nothing to be but H tier.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing.
Alrighty. So, with that, we will put Shonisaurus in our first H tier since the last DLC release.
These DLCs keep pumping out gems.
They just
Banger
keep
after
winning.
banger.
If you've been on the internet since I was in the mid-2000s, you may have been aware of the fact that some people like turtles. I like turtles, as they say. There's a new turtle in the game.
It's turtle
I'm
time.
extremely. It is 1:11 a.m. It's all ones on the clock, and
Make
I
a
have
wish.
to edit this whole video tomorrow. And we've been recording for hours. Release the turtle.
Release
It's
the
turtle
turtle.
Cowabunga dudes.
Baloney. So, my friend Brady, who I've mentioned several times on the channel, and I have a very stupid joke, which is that small turtles are tortellini, but this is a tortelloni. Because, like, that's the name for, like, a tortellini, but bigger.
You're correct. That wasn't a stupid joke.
It's very stupid, but I think it's really funny, and it's like that is a tortelloni. It's big. It's got a filling to it. It's got an outside.
So this is Archelon.
No. Let that hang for a little while longer. Sit in this.
This is Archelon.
Archelon.
His name means ruling turtle.
Woo! Good name.
Great name. Great turtle.
It's a great name for the biggest turtle that has ever existed.
Look at him go.
I'm just like kind of blown away by the attention to detail here on the motion that this guy has for moving. Because one of the things, did you notice that when he was like scooting himself, like his eyes were squinting like a cat that's chomping on something? He was putting some effort into that. That was super, super cool. I liked that a whole lot.
I love this model.
It's great.
I kind of think we said a lot of the interesting things about Archelon in our last video that talked about this stuff. Like, you know,
but I do have an interesting question about this guy.
Sure, yeah, go ahead, Scott.
So, we talked a bit about vocalizations with fish. Are there any turtles that vocalize?
Yes.
Oh, wait. Never mind. I'm backing this up. I know that there's the whole fucking thing of the turtles fucking on the shoe or whatever.
The turtles fucking on the shoe, and that sound effect became
in the
basis
T-Rex.
for all of the dragon sounds in Game of Thrones because it's a reptile sound that nobody hears a lot. So it's not the normal alligator sound. It's this high-pitched, screamy vocalization. And it's also in the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. I think it's specifically in the raptors.
I completely forgot about that. Never mind. I was gonna make a disparaging comment that these guys are very chatty for turtles. But
Well, so here, I've got a fun fact for you, is that there's actually, I don't know the status of this study, but like in undergrad, one of my professors had gotten a grant to actually get these little underwater robots to specifically listen for turtles in freshwater ponds and environments for
That's
the
awesome.
vocalization. Because there was talk about, like, I think the thinking is that, like, it's specifically for the juveniles. Like, after they hatch, they communicate with each other to try and find the pond, and then that hatch mates will, like, continue to talk to each other in the pond. So she called it the turtle robot grant, and she brought in the turtle robot one day. It was pretty cool. It was just like a little, submersible thingy.
That's very cool.
Again, I don't know the status of that, but it was really cool and fun to, like, hear about, because like we just talked about, you don't think about turtles making sounds very much because most people aren't around turtles enough to hear them make sounds, but they do. And aquatic ones do as well.
Can you imagine the sound that Archelon must have made while it was mating?
That's an 80 million Newton sound.
I mean, God. I honestly think Game of Thrones dragon noises probably aren't far off.
That's getting cut. That's horrible. Never say
No,
that again.
that's not getting cut.
Oh, God.
So yeah, he's a big turtle. Now Archelon is a protostegid turtle. So protostegids are completely extinct. Are they a Cretaceous extinction casualty, or do they go extinct? Like, do they?
I think they are,
sure they are.
but now you're going to make me check.
I will make you check. So Archelon has long been reconstructed as if it were a giant leatherback sea turtle. And while its carapace was leathery like that, it's not a close relative of modern leatherback sea turtles. It's not a member of that group.
it's not even a close relative of modern sea turtles in general.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
right. It's like it's a whole other thing.
So, okay. While Alex is looking up something, at the risk of diverging us off the path, unless Alex has found this.
So they go extinct in the Cretaceous extinction, but they're not that distant from extant sea turtles. Like it's all part of the same. It looks like it's all part of the same Pan-Chilonoidean. Like you're evolving a sea turtle. You have something like Toxocheles, then you have protostegids, and then you have a bunch of other groups, almost all of which, or a bunch of other taxa, almost all of which are extinct, except for leatherback sea turtles and proper sea turtles.
Right. I guess what I was getting at by saying they weren't even super closely related to like modern sea turtles in general was more like it isn't like this thing is a loggerhead sea turtle and it just kind of looks like a leatherback sea turtle. It's like this isn't a different group.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. And it is, and you're right.
But Scott, you were saying something?
Yeah. So I know that one of the features in this DLC that was really highly anticipated and is a really, really, I'll say right off the bat, a really cool feature that we were marveling at with Nothosaurus is the platforms there. They're really cool. They add a lot of visual interest to the enclosure. I like them a whole lot. I love that the animals interact with them and stuff. However, I don't think they should be a requirement for Archelon. I would be baffled, bamboozled, surprised in every sense of the word if these animals were not acting like every other type of sea turtle that we know of and only coming up on land to reproduce. That, like, modern aquaria, they don't need to have, like, they don't need to have a special little land area for the green sea turtles and stuff to come up on land. They don't do that, really. They spend their whole lives, with the exception of when they are laying eggs. So I wouldn't even be that surprised if it's only the females that ever actually come up on land. If males spend their entire lives at water, at sea.
Right, except for like that moment when their baby is doing the mad dash, like the reverse Normandy beach.
The reverse Normandy, yep.
Right.
And like these things, they mate in the water, they sleep underwater.
Right.
That, like I mentioned earlier that like you can see the amount of detail that went into the effort that these guys are putting into hauling that, what I would assume, multi-ton body up on land. This is not an easy or comfortable activity for these animals to participate.
It must have been at least 2 tons. Right, like this is a lot of turtle.
Yeah. So
a lot of
like,
tortelloni.
A lot of tortelloni. I guess that being said, it is more plausible for plesiosaurus to be hauling itself up on land. We know that these guys were definitely hauling themselves up on land, but doing it with the frequency that it's depicted in the game and needing to come up on land to rest, I do not think is how these guys would have behaved, or to also lean into the side of the game that is like, yeah, we're making a zoo for these animals. This isn't something that you would need if you were keeping this animal in captivity.
No, I mean, to that point, when in the trailer react video, when I talked about that giant loggerhead sea turtle at the aquarium I grew up with that I really loved and that reminded me of Archelon, there was no land for it. That thing was swimming 24/7. And it didn't need it. It's fine.
The New England Aquarium has that really cool, like, central column that goes up like 4 stories that has like 4, 5 sea turtles in there, something like that. There's a ton of them. There's no land.
No, and the same with the one at the shed. And I'm even thinking about back home. We've got at the Milwaukee Zoo. There's a big river turtle, giant river turtle, and she doesn't have. She's got like a little ramp to go up if she wants, but like she's never over there. She's always kind of cruising around, hanging out in the water. So.
And there's even a stronger argument for river turtles because they still have claws, they still walk up on land, they still rest on land and stuff. I guess it's more that like this entirely marine turtle is being depicted like it's a river turtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my counter, though. If I lived in a sea that had a million different species of mosasaurs, maybe I'd climb out on stuff a little
I'd
more.
swim out so fast it would be like a rocket shooting into space. Like they would be like salmon
Like a
swimming
T-Rex
upstream,
fighting.
just shooting out onto the shoreline.
So
How many newtons are you swimming with?
88 million.
so
Yes,
Is this
it
our new jokes coming through?
this is our new jokes coming through.
88 million newtons.
So, okay, on that topic, actually, I have some heartbreaking news for you guys.
No.
So, apparently, after some testing, but at least from what I have seen, none of the mosasaurs can hunt.
No.
That's stupid.
That's annoying.
That's absolutely
I
stupid.
don't believe
Is
it.
it time to test it?
Yeah, give it. Well, yeah, if you wanted. I'm gonna make a stupid, and I could go grab Oceans of
I'd
Kansas.
say you do Mosasaurus itself as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just also dumb question. So the hooked snout. That's
Yes.
the more modern interpretation, right? Okay.
What do you mean? Like, we have full skulls, and that's just what they look like.
Yeah. No. So there's kind of the Peabody's
Yeah, much
old
longer
skull is
and
yeah
tapering.
is incorrect, but
I think a complete rostrum wasn't found initially, so it was reconstructed as looking more like a traditional sea turtle now. But like once we found complete skulls, yeah, Scott's right. Like this is just what
Right.
their head looks like.
cool.
Like, for all intents and purposes, the animal in the game, this is what
Yeah.
Archelon looked like. This is
Now, we
almost
should-
perfect.
Yeah.
We should say that our surprise about the absence or the apparent absence of mosasaur Archelon violence in this game is surprising because we know that they were murdering them.
Yeah, so I don't have the book handy right now, but there is, and I don't believe it's actually Archelon, but it's one of the other genera that was split from Archelon. So it might be, is it Protostega is the other one? But like large sea turtles from the seaway are very often found with mosasaur bite marks. There's one at the Sternberg Museum. That's probably the best example of it. And honestly, like, we can throw up the figure here showing what had happened. It's got both punctures in the carapace in the top and in the plastrons, the bottom shell. And they are like straight through, nice and clean, unhealed, and in a perfect V shape of mosasaur snout. But it actually looks like there's a couple like V shapes, so it's like it was grabbed a couple of times. The other thing is that a lot of seaway turtle fossils are not found with their flippers because those are really easy to rip off. And in fact, you guys said the Yale specimen is missing a
It's back right
flipper. So, yep,
Stumpy.
stumpy.
I guess what could be a quick test of this, though, is check the status of the Archelon and see if any of them are panicking.
No, they seem to be upset that they have a missing platform. I guess I need to give them one more platform. Hey, I'm confused. Oh, guys, I made a Tylosaurus. Did the Mosasaurus already kill it? But no.
Oh.
The Archelons seem unbothered.
It's honestly kind of cool. Like, I know it's not paleobiologically accurate, but I think it's kind of neat that you can approximate a Western Interior Seaway diorama with Tylosaurus and Archelon and not have it be like, you know, like just Archelon genocide.
See,
We can turn all that shit off, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
but I don't like to. I like to have some degree of like I like to have some constraint when I'm playing.
like, at least I'm planning for my own park to have Styxosaurus, elasmosaurus, Archelon.
Yeah. You could honestly,
Western interior,
in my
somewhere.
experience, if you have enough space and enough fish, you can keep a Tylosaurus in there, and it won't go berserk and kill everything.
Oh, true. It's more of like a, like if I, like at least in my head of like if I was running this as a zoo, you wouldn't put a great white shark in
With your seals.
with the dolphins, even if you're just like, okay, I do have some feeders in here, so it probably
Fair
won't
enough.
eat them.
I want to
It's-
say
it-
something about Archelon.
It's like, okay, I'll just.
Sorry, no, I thought you were done. No, I thought you were done.
I was
Sorry,
going to make one more point. It's like how a lot of times when I make exhibits in this game as well, even if things have like would not fight each other, but have a large enough size difference, I probably don't put those in the same exhibits either. It's like, even though it's like, yeah, there's going to be no issue with the elephants hunting down and killing the meerkats or vice versa, something's going to get stepped on. So I personally, in my own parks, I just don't do it. But yeah, go on, James.
Well, so there's periodically a movement that sweeps through Twitter of like what would common names for prehistoric animals be, and
Please.
and I think it's often very like it's kind of misguided because people are just trying to they're naming the prehistoric animals kind of like the animals in Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they're just like combinations of modern animals, like calling a T-Rex a grizzly hawk, which is like just not a combination that doesn't make sense. Like that's not something that people would come up with. But my favorite counterexample, I remember I was complaining because there was one day where there was a lot of this on Twitter, and I was texting Scott, and I was like, what really annoys me is that there's an example that is obviously what it would be if the ancient Greeks saw it, which is Triceratops, like how they called a rhinoceros, because it just means like nose horn.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have just been like, oh, that's the three-horned face, and they would have been like Triceratops.
Yeah.
If they saw this, they would just be
There's
Archelon.
King Turtle.
It would be the king turtle, right? Like that's just what it would be. And if it got translated into English at all, it would just be king turtle, which is what Archelon means. It's something I think is neat, and it ties into
the Tylosaurus, the mosasaurus, just
oh
the Tylosaurus.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh, his mouth is just open in a perpetual scream.
Away with you. You kill everything. Why won't you kill the turtles?
The turtles don't even
No.
look bothered. Look at
Yeah.
that one right next
Unbothered.
to it.
Would you say they're moisturized in their
Oh, they're
lane?
very moist.
Oh my god. Turtles. Oh god. Turtle phylogeny. We don't know.
No.
Oh, wait, I wasn't done. There's something about classic cinema in here. And by classic, I mean
Okay.
B-movies. If
Okay.
you watch the movie 1 Million Years BC, the one from the 1960... Actually, wait, this is 1 million BC, right? Which one is that? 1 million BC is...
I don't know.
Hold on.
I don't remember.
It's
off
1
the top of
million
my head.
years BC. 1 million
Also,
BC
Alex, fix
was
your
made in
camera.
the- Yeah,
Am I?
you're off camera. Okay, so 1
Yeah,
million
you were just
BC
off
was made in
camera.
the 20s or something, and it had a lot of, like, abused, like, caiman and tegus and everything with fins tied to them to look like dinosaurs.
Oh, I don't think they were tied to him. I think they were glued to him.
I think they
Oh.
were glued, yeah. 1 million years BC had one blown-up lizard as, like, it was a big iguana, just made larger on camera. But it was mostly stop-motion dinosaurs and things. But there's a scene where a truly enormous turtle comes out of the water and starts attacking the cave people. And in the background noise, you can just hear one of the cave people just yell, Archelon.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which is kind of neat. It's the only thing that like gets directly named in the movie. And it's cool that it's just like that's the local name for it. It's Archelon.
I like that the cave people
They're Greek.
knew their
Greek.
Greek.
Yeah, they knew their protostegid taxonomy too.
That's cool.
This is the one that was very famous because it has Raquel Welch in the fur bikini on the poster.
Yes.
Oh yes. Okay. Before we rank, do we want to just very briefly discuss the fun world of turtle
Well, sure.
taxonomy?
So-
I mean,
Fun.
We know
Turtle.
where Archelon goes within turtles, and we have a decent idea of the structure of the turtle tree. But what kind of reptiles are turtles? is a harder question to answer. Because turtles have done the
Yeah.
horrible thing of making a shell. And in the process, they've modified the rest of their anatomy in bizarre, fun, and grotesque ways.
Mostly grotesque.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could probably make a whole video on like what are turtles. There's a scene from The Office in which Steve Carell's character Michael Scott yells, "Where are the turtles?" in a very loud, exasperated tone of voice.
Yeah, it's a
Something
Nothosaur.
died.
They're starving. I don't know why.
Oh, okay.
I
Poor
made too
boy,
many.
we hardly knew you. Anyway, he's like very flustered and screams, "Where are the turtles?" And that's a question that many systematists have tried to answer as well. Where do they go? Where are the turtles? The very short version of this is that genomic evidence and an increasing amount of like subtle and difficult to access morphological evidence is indicating that they're probably archosauromorphs or
Sister.
sister to Archosauromorpha. So I use the clade name informally, but on the Archosaur side of the split with Lepidosaurs. Archosauromorph is defined in a way that doesn't include them. So they would be like, yeah. I'm sorry, Alex, you go ahead.
Just the paper we mentioned earlier in the video about sauropterygids, like that is one of the more recent papers that gets at least stem turtles as the sister group to sauropterygians plus archosauromorphs. And prior to this, I believe there was like no morphological hypotheses that get these topologies, and now some at least incipient ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thorny issue.
It is.
Do they?
Sorry.
Because Dalton's right. Because they're making a shell. Their shoulder girdle has to move inside of their ribs during development. A horrible monster thing to do. They lose the holes in their diapsids, so they're like turtles are almost certainly diapsid reptiles, but they close up all the holes in their head, so we don't know. They rearrange their jaw muscles. Their ears are horrible and weird. They don't have teeth, and like there's all these questions about are they marine first? Are they terrestrial? Are they aquatic? It's a mess.
So there's a couple pieces of morphological evidence that seem to tie them in. One is that, and this isn't formal because of issues with homology. It seems that primitive stem turtles have a ossification in the brain case in the topological position that corresponds to the lateral sphenoid bone in archosaurs, which could indicate some shared developmental trajectory. However, I don't recall the exact arguments, but it was not formally homologized with the lateral sphenoid, but it is a lateral sphenoid-like brain case bone. And the presence of a lateral sphenoid is a synapomorphy of Archosauria that was noticed by like Owen or Huxley. I forget which one of them first wrote about it, but that was like part of recognizing that crocs and birds had shared ancestry. And it happened way back in the 1800s.
Now, is that distributed like through Archosauriforms and I honestly can't remember where lateral sphenoids.
I don't remember where it originates because everything I've researched is like that's a reptile is within Archosauromorpha, or I'm sorry, within Archosaur.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe Kelsey would know.
Yeah. Why do you text her tomorrow, and if you get an answer before I'm done with the video, I'll put it in.
I'll let you know.
Here. Yeah. So that's one. From what I understand, the tapering cervical ribs is also another characteristic that's more Archosaur-like. And turtles seem to have that, or basal ones do, where the cervical ribs aren't like, uniform rods, but they taper toward the end. Cervical ribs being the ribs on the neck vertebrae. And lastly, and I think this might be a neat little thing to close out on.
Sure.
One interesting thing that dawned on me while we were recording this is that obviously sea turtles are, as Scott said, basically fully marine animals, right? They're not like seals or something. They don't hang out on land. They live their life at sea. The only reason they ever come back onto land is to lay eggs. And they do that because eggs can't exist underwater. There needs to be gas exchange over the egg surface. So if you lay them underwater, the egg drowns.
Well,
Specifically reptile eggs.
Well, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Like a reptile, an amniotic egg, right? You can't lay an amniotic egg underwater. So these animals, despite their extreme adaptation toward life in the water, are returning to land to nest. And this is extremely risky for the babies, right? You know, there's incredibly high mortality of the babies as they make it back toward the water. It's a dangerous time for the adults. They're vulnerable. It's physically difficult. It seems like the kind of thing that if they had an evolutionary way out of, they would have taken. Which would mean that there's probably some constraint operating that's preventing them from becoming obligate, like ocean-going animals that give live birth. The way, like, you know, mosasaurs and plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs all seem to have done. Mammals obviously do that as well. And so I don't remember the mechanisms of this, and I think it's something we've mentioned in a prior video, but archosaurs seem to be constrained to get the calcium they use during development specifically from eggshell. So that's what they form their skeleton with as an embryo.
We do mention this previously. We mentioned this in the homalocephaly video.
Right,
when we talk about live birth.
Oh, God. Right.
So this would mean that an archosaur is evolutionarily constrained where they can never lose the eggshell. They can't start giving live birth because without the eggshell, they'd have no way for the embryonic skeleton to develop. Now, as Amelia and Dalton are very well aware, within lepidosauromorphs, and within, like, squamates in particular, there's incredible lability in this trait, right? I think we saw a PhD dissertation at the AMNH. Amelia, you were at Max's dissertation defense, right? Yeah. I think it's like over 100 separate transitions of that trait, like live birth to egg laying. Sometimes it's intraspecifically variable. It varies within small clades, so it's not even like you might have a quote unquote family that is diverse in this trait, so it's not like a major difference. If these turtles were on the side of I'm sorry, I got distracted. Dalton, the animal appears to not be moving.
It's
on
moving
the
from
stream.
Yeah,
Is that
the Discord might be frozen?
Okay.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
Okay. It doesn't matter as long as
we're back.
Yeah, we're back. I just wanted to make
good.
sure Dalton's internet wasn't crashing. So what this would mean to me is that if turtles are on the archosaur line, their evolutionary inability or failure to evolve live birth and fully take to the water would be explained as potentially like a not explained, but rather it could be a sign of some physiological synapomorphy, right? Like some developmental trajectory that they have to undergo.
I am inclined to agree because I have a lot of thoughts about the development of egg laying and live birth in archosaurs. But I will point out another constraint that could be keeping them from giving live birth is the shell. That they would lack the flexibility needed to carry and then give birth to babies.
Yeah, I would just. I think Dalton's correct. I think that it might be. I think the constraint on live birth in turtles has more to do with their specific anatomy than any shared archosaur character, because tenostrophiids are live birth, I think.
Well, and I thought, look, obviously,
and sauropterygia.
I was about to say sauropterygians, like so plesiosaurs and stuff. Alternatively, I think there has to be another thing going on, though, because like in squamates, sometimes what happens is they're not viviparous and they're not oviparous. They're ovoviviparous, which means that they still develop eggs and the eggs just hatch inside and the babies come out. So it looks like it's live birth, but it's really not. And
bootleg live birth, as we have live birth at home.
Basically, I mean, literally. Like, yeah, so I don't know, but there still could be a physiological problem with that, with like, I'll just say this horrible phrase, how do you get a baby turtle out of a birth canal? Like, I don't know.
I
think it would be hard.
I've heard
they're easy, they already come as eggs. You shoot them out like
a BB.
Like ping pong ball.
Yeah.
I've heard arguments that never mind.
No, you gotta finish it.
I've heard arguments that ovoviviparity is not a quote-unquote real category. I don't remember what the exact argument was, but basically that, like, a lot of suspected cases of that are actually ovipary, and that, like, it's not... Right, many such cases. I don't know it well enough, so I'm not going to, like, stake a claim on that, but I know that there's some complexity there that I've heard where... I know some people are kind of like, that's not really as much of a strategy as a lot of, like, prior texts will say it is, but... I don't really know. I think it's an interesting question. I think it's very possible that Tanystrophiids found a unique solution to a physiological problem. Then, even if it's a more general thing. And sauropterygians are probably more distant from archosaurs than turtles are.
Well, unless
Yeah.
they're
Right.
sister turtles.
Or
I mean, that's not what the trees that
Is
get
that
them
not-
morphologically.
that's what I thought it was, that they were like outside of.
No, it's archosauromorphs and sauropterygians and then turtles.
Really? Okay, then I had that wrong. That said,
It's wild. It wouldn't have been my guess either.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also won't put a lot of stake in where turtles go.
Fair.
It's moving up a node.
You know what I would put a lot of stake in? Where we rank this turtle right now, though.
Hi, everybody. James here. It was at this point in the recording that our recording platform failed once more. We were unable to record a ranking for Archelon, but as I'm sure you can tell from the way things were going in the video, we did decide to rank it H tier. Now, this video is of course titanically long, and I don't want to prolong it anymore, but of course, I just want to briefly give a shout out to our most generous patrons, these being Benjamin Sipser, Philip Fico, Andrew Niddle, Florida Man, Max Ironpaw, Riley Sharrow, and Wheat. Their insanely generous support of $25 a month or more really goes a long way to helping us keep the channel running, especially when we're spending an entire day editing a Titanic video like this one. I'll have the names of all of our patrons scrolling in the credits right now. Thank you all so much for your support. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And stay tuned next week for our long-awaited video ranking Apatosaurus. Thank you very much.